Welcome everyone to episode 87 of the Looks Like a Movie podcast. My name's Kevin. I'm here with Doug and Owen, and today we're finally talking about Megalopolis as well as diving into our New York Film Festival experiences now that the festival is over. But first, as always, we can talk about weekly watches that don't include festival stuff. I guess there is no festival stuff for you guys, but
Well, Doug's been gone, so he has
yeah,
2 weeks or 3 weeks,
right.
which that doesn't seem like
Do we want to
it's
start
gonna
with
be a
do we
lot,
want to start with
but
Doug then? Do you want to do 2
yeah,
weeks
he's
on
the
the
he's the
blog?
he's got all the weeks. He's got
Yeah.
I watched some bullshit. I don't know. I haven't been watching a ton of stuff, but I watched you guys know that movie How to Have Sex
Yes,
with
that people really liked and you didn't.
Molly Manning Walker? Um it's okay, I guess. It's like fine. I watched it on the plane on my phone. Um
Okay.
uh
What didn't you like about it?
it's I don't know. I kind of half watched it, but um the the performances were nice. It was like they talked in like these really thick, like I don't even know like what area in England people talk like this. But like these like it felt like the equivalent to Southern American accents in the movie. Uh
Hmm. Are
um
you just, like, not familiar with English accents, though? Is that the problem? Do they all just sound foreign to you?
Yeah, that's the
all sound
problem.
foreign as in like they like not from America.
Yeah, as in, like, you can't, like, like, you can't understand them well.
No,
Hmm.
I understand when people say things.
Okay.
Uh and
Just
I
Well,
watched
not this specific accent in the
I
movie,
watched
which you
Uncle
don't.
Boonme Who Can Recall His
Okay.
Past Lives.
now we're cooking.
Um
Yeah, what do you think about that? 'Cause you rated it, but you didn't review it, and we haven't
Yeah,
talked
I
about
didn't
it.
review it. It's so
I mean, it's tough
it
to
is hard.
review.
It's a little hard to talk about. It's such an experience,
Mhm.
and it's so metaphysical and so interesting. Um, and I don't know. It's really good. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's interesting. It won the Palme d'Or in 2010, and I think that Tim Burton was the jury president when it won
That's
the Palme
awesome.
d'Or.
I wanna know what Tim Burton thought of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you liked it, but
Right, yeah, no, it's
that's
interesting.
awesome. And he was like, "I'm
Uh,
gonna go do Dumbo or Alice in Wonderland or some bullshit."
yeah. Well, there's like this theory that there's this theory that like the winner, so like the jury president, it's always a filmmaker, that the jury president at Cannes,
Yeah.
they like to give the palm to the movie that they wouldn't have been able to make, or it's like the movie that like they could never make, they like to reward.
Yeah.
So it's like Tim Burton
That
like
makes
felt
sense.
like he would not be able to make something like Uncle Moon Meat, which I agree. I don't think he would be able to
Yeah,
make
no,
something like
I mean,
Uncle Moon
it's
Meat.
totally it's
Um,
not really there's not really a similarity you can pull from that movie.
but it's so spiritual and so metaphysical and so just like I love when I love when people talk to each other like they talk to each other in Uncle Boonme. It's like they are in a world where they just everything's at face value, right? And there's no hiding in the conversation, and it's like actually expressing their emotions, and it's like it feels so much more normal than reality sometimes. Because like there's a scene where his son his son who had died reappears as like a wolf man, and it's like this spiritual creature,
Mhm.
and it's just so like I don't recognize he says in the movie, it's like, I don't recognize you, but I accept that you're my son and it's nice to
Yeah.
see you. And it's like people don't talk like that, you know? It's very sweet. It's a real movie people need to watch. You would like it, Kevin Mikos.
Yeah,
Um
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard as much.
it's an essential kind of modern picture for sure.
um then I watched a couple of short films starring
Yeah, what
Rachel
were you
Sennett.
doing? What were you up to?
I saw that as well.
What is
I
he
was like, "This
building in
fucking
there?
guy, there's no way you like her that much."
I
He
don't. That's
doesn't.
the
He
thing. I
doesn't.
don't.
That's why
I
it's like,
don't.
what the fuck is he doing?
I don't
So
know.
confusing.
I just like find myself on Rachel Sennett's like letterbox page, and then I look and I'm like, oh, there's this short film, and then I just like Google the short film and watch it.
But you watched like two of them.
I know I watched more than one. Yeah.
He
Uh,
watched one and was motivated enough to want to check out
well,
another.
I
he watched
watched
one. He was
one,
like, "This is awful," and then watched another one.
and I was like, it's not. This also isn't very good. But I don't know. I don't know. There's something. I don't know what I'm cooking. There's something wrong with my brain. So shout out
Yeah,
Rachel
that's for
Sennett,
sure.
friend of the podcast. And then for the first time, I watched Sherlock Jr., the
Mhm.
Buster Keaton film, which is very good. And
Very
then
good.
I watched last night. I watched with friend of the pod Devin. I watched Throwdown,
Oh,
directed by Johnny
you
To.
threw it down with Devin.
I threw it down with Devin.
Oh,
Bro, this shit is so good. It's so good. It's about this guy who's like a failed son, like judo fighter, like athlete, and his life is just in shambles. And it but then it's about like reconnecting. It's like such a life affirming film. It's about like reconnecting with life and getting back into it by being around people that motivate you. And it's so romantic and it looks amazing. People don't light fucking movies like this anymore. It's
when did this come
so
out?
awesome. And it's about a guy and he plays a saxophone and it's so fucking sick. It's so awesome.
You got a year on this
It
one?
came out in 2004.
Okay,
Yeah, it
thanks,
came out in
Kevin.
2004.
I also want to call attention to the fact I just not to like completely distract from the Johnny Toe of it all. I want to put specific attention on the fact that Sherlock Jr. is sandwiched between the Rachel Sennett shorts. He actually watched Sherlock Jr. and then his thought immediately after was to return to watching Rachel Sennett shorts.
Yeah, that was pretty good,
Um,
but it could use a little Rachel Sennett.
I don't know. I literally, like, what's my deal? I literally don't know.
Yeah,
I
which
don't
is
know how that
concerning.
happened.
like, how is that the place you ended up after watching Sherlock Jr.?
I just found myself on her letterbox page again. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just like
he can't control himself.
I don't no, okay, don't say that. That's crazy. Um
I mean, that's what you're
It's
saying.
interesting. No, it's interesting.
You're saying you have no power over yourself.
well, it's one of I feel like I should like Rachel Sennett, but I just don't kind of also. It's weird.
I like
Um
her. She's good. She was. I was gonna say she was good in Saturday Night. She's like kind of just average in Saturday Night.
is she
Is
playing the
but
same character she plays in everything else?
Uh, well, she's playing a real person, but it's like
Right.
yeah,
Rachel
but
Sennett. It's like Rachel Sennett playing a real person.
It's kind of like an SNL performance where it's
Oh, wait till you find out what the movie's about. Owen, what'd you watch?
okay, so I mean, a lot of the stuff I watched was for school, but I did watch. I don't think I talked about this last time. I watched History of Violence, the David Cronenberg film, because we watched. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Shrouds. We'll probably talk about it more this episode, but we watched after the Shrouds. Is like I gotta go watch another Cronenberg, because this is one of the bigger ones that I haven't seen yet. I've seen most of his films, but that was one where I was like, I really want to watch this. And there was some images that I really liked. There's this one image of Viggo Mortensen, and he's kind of like really small in the frame, and there's these really big red kind of autumn leaves. And I was like, oh, I really want to watch this because I'm really focusing on like the autumn leaves right now and kind of capture those. So I watched that, really loved that film. And then I watched Late Spring for class, the Ozu film. Kind of, it's a remarkable film, of course. I haven't seen an Ozu film in like 2 years, and I've only seen Good Morning, which is in color. So watching one of his earlier films, which is black and white, um, there's like crazy rumbling going on. I don't know what's going on. Was great. Have you seen that one, Doug?
Late Spring I have. I need to rewatch it now that I have a little bit more of a
Yeah.
brain, but
Yeah, those things.
Yeah,
happen.
no, I think I saw you like had it logged, but like not rated or something.
yeah, because I had it rated at like probably like a 3 or 3.5 when I watched
Yeah,
it, and I just removed it.
really, really great. And he was one of those filmmakers where it's like I haven't really seen a lot of his stuff. But after watching Late Spring, I was like, oh, a lot of the stuff he's doing is like very similar to the stuff I'm very interested in right now. Where it's like 2 years ago, it's like, oh, this is good, but it's not really my thing entirely. Now he's very similar to the kind of stuff I'm looking into. So I don't know if I'm, when I will definitely get to more of his work when I'm available to do that. But I definitely
Yeah.
think he's a filmmaker I will really enjoy.
Very
Um,
slow, like
it's
very,
slow
very,
minimalism,
yeah.
not a lot of no camera movement.
No camera movements. He
Yeah,
puts that
yeah,
shit on the ground. He
yeah,
puts that camera on
yeah,
the
yeah,
ground and lets
yeah.
people talk.
Yeah, no, great film. Then I watched Playtime again for school. I saw this movie
Bro hates
three.
Jacques Tati. He thinks Jacques Tati should have lost
So
more money on
okay,
Playtime.
okay, okay. I saw this movie in 2022, right? And then in 2023, I saw it for a sound class, and then this year I saw it again for the class. And I no one told the teacher that we saw it last year, and she was like, "Oh, you guys should have told me. I wouldn't have. You probably would have saw something else." So I've seen this 3 times now. It's not my favorite movie, but you know. And then what was I doing? Oh, so I've been trying to figure out how to movie max in the way that my schedule works. So I'm on the train. The train ride is probably like an hour 10, maybe, like the commuter rail, and then I have to get another train and another train. But I've been trying to find like movies I can download that are like an hour ish. Um, so I watched and I found this really great documentary on James Benning called James Benning Circling the Image,
Mhm.
which is following James Benning as he's working on 13 Lakes. And that was a really great documentary. I really liked that. And he talked about the Lumiere brothers in this documentary. And he talks about the Lumiere brothers and his kind of how he was trying to his kind of filmmaking was the kind of going back to the beginning before like narrative structure and the kind of point and shoot and a lot of like listening and looking and finding the right image and finding that kind of perfect image to kind of capture a space, capture a real space in the world and kind of create a perfect image that captures the essence that you're trying to get of that space. So that kind of point and shoot stuff. So then I watched some of the Lumiere shorts. I really, really like the Arrival of Train. I think it's so good, and it kind of I've seen it before.
That is the most
Maybe
famous Lumiere short. Yeah.
yeah, no, but I've seen it before, right? And I've seen it maybe a couple years ago. But after being familiar with Benning's work, I think Benning I kind of I get it more. It's like I think it's a film that is like kind of written off and there's like a lot of joke reviews on Letterboxd because it's like very like it's 40 seconds, train comes in. But with like, with Benning's RR and stuff like that and kind of the kind of point and shoot of it all, I really found myself really liking his work and kind of it making more sense to me in my head in the kind of tech that it's going with. I also did watch American Dreams, which is another Benning film that was like 55 minutes, so I watched that on the train. Again, all a bunch of Lumiere shorts. Then I watched. So I was my cousin got married in Maryland, so we had a long car ride. So I downloaded a few films to watch in the car ride. So I watched Warren Beatty's Heaven Can Wait. Crazy jump from the Lumieres to
It's
Warren
the
Beatty, but
football movie, right?
this movie's awesome. This movie is so funny. I was in like the back seat of the car, just like fucking dying laughing. Um, I don't even know how to like. So there was this. I'll kind of preface this with there was a movie that came out in 1941, and I don't know if this is an adaptation or original film, but it's called Here Comes Mr. Jordan. And here comes and the movie has been kind of remade a bunch and like kind of adapted. It might be a book, I'm not sure, but I think the premise is yes. So what happens is the character dies in these things. He dies and well, he doesn't actually die. He it's confusing. And the movie's really confusing. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but it's like awesome. So I'll just kind of explain Heaven Can Wait, and uh, Heaven Can Wait is like he's a football player in the movie, but that's like the new version of it. But what happens is he gets in an accident, but the guy in heaven pulls him out before he actually dies because he's like, oh, he's a goner, he's fucking dead. So he pulls him out, and then he's dead, and then he's in heaven, and he's like, I'm not supposed to be here, and the guy's like, yeah, he's supposed to be dead in like they actually say like 2025. So the guy messes up, he pulls him out too early. He's like, I'm not supposed to be dead yet, and I got to go fucking win the Super Bowl for the Rams. So he's in heaven, he's like trying to like make deals with these guys, and they're like, okay, we messed up, right? We messed up. That's my bad. You're not supposed to be dead yet. So but the problem is they cremated his body. They cremated his body, so he doesn't have a body to go back into.
What the fuck?
So
What
his
the
soul
fuck?
is up in heaven, and he's like, dude, you messed up. Like, I'm not supposed to be dead. So they, so they have to find a new body for him to take over in. So a guy who's like about to die, they can swap. They can do like a like thing. So he starts like hopping bodies, but he's like he's trying to find the perfect body because he's got to go play quarterback for the Rams. He's gonna go win the Super Bowl. So he's like jumping into bodies, and he gets into all these hijinks in these new bodies, but because he's trying to win the Super Bowl. Uh, Ridiculous kind of premise. It's really sweet, really funny. I really recommend it. But that is like the basic premise of like the kind of the films that are adapted in this kind of strain of stories. Like, guy dies, but not actually, and he gets sent out, and he's like, wrong body, and he gets put into other people's bodies. But this one is
Yeah.
like he needs to win the Super Bowl for the Rams, and he's like, really, like, I gotta win the Super Bowl for the Rams. It's ridiculous. It's really great. Warren Beatty is one of the great actors. A lot of fun. Elaine May helped write it. It's amazing. And then I watched Halloween. We'll talk about that when we get to that. I watched One Way Boogie Woogie, the James Benning film. And then I watched North on Evers, another James Benning film, and that's my week.
Have you seen Vous prix du ballerine en marche?
Just stop. It's okay. We can move on.
You want no. What are you talking about?
It's sailors. It's like it's the sailors rowing
Verge?
Lumiere short.
Um.
I'm on your Letterboxd. You haven't seen it, but
Okay.
that's my favorite.
Why'd you have
It's, wait,
It's
not the boat leaving the port. It's a different sailing one.
no. So it's about so boat leaving the port is just them is
Yeah,
like
it's
hit
leaving
them.
it's the
This
boat
is
leaving
the
port.
camera is on a boat and they're
Oh.
like the guys are rowing and the camera's in the boat. It's my
Oh, yeah,
favorite
no,
Lumiere short.
I'll have
It's
to
so
check
sick.
that one out. No, yeah, okay, cool.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, it's okay. I was amazed by how long it took him to explain Heaven Can Wait.
Dude, it's really confusing because
there's like 400 movies that have done that concept, and Owen
No, I
took like
know.
4 minutes to set it up.
Okay, so imagine a guy. Now, what if that guy was a football player? And then what if he died, right? But then what if he was like, okay, heaven can wait. And then Kevin, what's your
okay.
favorite Lumiere
They pulled
short?
him out too early.
I think I've only seen the train at the station. Leaving the
That's
station? At the
crazy.
station?
It's
Which one is it?
entering. It's
Entering?
arriving.
I've seen 120 Lumiere shorts.
Yeah, we're aware. We're aware. Also,
lot,
people were tweeting at Owen when he was watching that one. He watched it like 6 times.
Yeah, people were like,
It's
"We
like
get it,
40
bro."
seconds long, so I kept watching it because I was like, "Oh, this is great." Like,
People are like, "We get it. The train is
train
arriving at the
has
station."
arrived.
did I study the film?
I watched The Conjuring for the first time. I'd never seen it.
Fucking banger.
Yeah, so like both The Conjuring and one of those other movies. Is it Insidious that I'm thinking of?
Yeah, those are the two James Wan
or Sinister
franchises.
might be the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
That like they're just like movies from that time period. It's Sinister that I'm thinking of. Those movies from that time period where I like I never like watched them at the time because they scared me too much, and then I never watched them when I got older because I thought I would still be scared. And The Conjuring, I probably should have watched it when I was a teenager because I probably would have actually been scared. It's not as scary as I had like hyped it up to be in my head, but it's quite fun, and I like cried at the end. I was very moved by it, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was just going to be like really scary, and the family aspect of it all is it's quite nice.
I gotta watch that one.
I was a fan.
It's a banger. One of my faves. You should watch the second one if you like the first one.
I will. Yeah, I'm planning on it.
Good.
I don't know when because so my problem is that I set up this list of horror movies I want to watch in October, right?
Yeah.
We're about to be at the halfway point of October, and I just watched my first one yesterday. Because in my head, when I made the list, I was like, oh, the film festival is not going to get in the way that much, blah, blah, blah. And then the film festival did get in the way. And then we also have this commitment to do a Halloween episode at the end of the month. And so now my list, well, we spoiled it last episode.
We spoil it every episode.
So now my list of movies that I was planning on watching is just kind of like sitting there. Plus, I'm just like randomly watching other movies, which I'll get to in a second. So just really bad progress on that. But The Conjuring was not part of that list. That was just a separate horror movie that I ended up being in the mood for. I rewatched Gladiator to prepare for Gladiator 2. Um, Still love that movie. I know a lot of people are like lower on it. I could kind of see that more watching it this time. Like I kind of saw like some of the like very obvious issues people might have with the movie. I just kind of like don't care. I don't
It's
it just moves me.
That's an interesting one because that's like the most one of his most popular movies, and it won Best Picture, obviously. But there's like a lot of like like online cinephiles that are like, this
Yeah,
is the
who
worst
hate
Ridley
it.
Scott movie.
Yeah.
It's still
And
good though. It's
there's
still
like
good.
things there where I get
I'm
I
sure G.I. Jane
specifically
is worse. I'm
I
gonna be honest.
specifically have seen a lot of people talk about like some of like the fight scenes where it's just like quick cuts and you don't understand what's going on, and like half the time they're upside down, and it's like
They're upside
I don't.
down.
Yeah, apparently there's like if you pause it really fast, there's like ones where it's just upside down, like there's just like somebody fighting. I don't know if that letterbox review was just a joke or if it was like genuine. It was probably a joke, but regardless, like it doesn't really mean
Yeah.
anything to me. I don't know, like that's not the stuff in the movie that I
I'm
really
real I'm
care about.
actually excited for the second one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the first Gladiator before, and
Oh,
I just yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. But
hopefully
before the new
before
one comes
Gladiator
out.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the I just found out that MF Doom, like it's not a joke. He just like took the mask from Gladiator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they have the new popcorn bucket, and it's just literally the
Yeah,
MF Doom
Yeah.
mask.
yeah, it's badass. But like I always thought it
It's
was like,
also
oh,
funny that it's like Doctor Doom, and then he has the gladiator mask, not the Doctor Doom
no, yeah,
mask.
it's a
Yeah.
gladiator mask. But I'm a huge MF Doom fan, and I just didn't know that he just like he watched Gladiator and was like,
I
oh,
was like,
that
oh, I
mask
like
goes
that
crazy.
mask.
Yeah, he was
And
just like,
it's like not a big part of the movie. It's just like
no,
a
it's
mask like
Right.
that's in like a scene.
No, yeah, it's really not in the movie. I mean,
It's
he just like takes it off right away when he introduces himself, and then he
yeah,
never has to wear it again because everybody knows it's him now. So
yeah.
like, it's just it's not
It's
that
just
significant. I'm curious if you'll like it, Doug.
yeah,
I
I
don't know.
wonder if the
to be
mask
seen.
is the popcorn bucket because of MF Doom, because
Well,
that
that's what I
mask
was
is
gonna
like
say. Do you think that's gonna influence popcorn bucket sales at all? Like, you think anybody buys
There
it
are
just for that
oh yeah,
reason?
yes, there are
100%,
MF Doom
100%.
fans that are going to buy it just for that.
That aren't
Yeah,
even gonna see the
100.
movie.
I might
That's
honestly, I might do that just because of the MF Doom of it.
It's a sick
Yeah, like
popcorn
it
it
is
is
bucket.
a cool
really cool.
popcorn bucket. Yeah.
It's better
Um.
than like fucking Deadpool's
Oh, right there.
ass or
Wait,
something.
right there, MF Doom, right there
Oh
in the
shit.
mask. Um,
I rewatched Zombieland, which is just like a thing that I do every year.
And your rating is gonna keep going down.
Yeah, this is the first time I watched it after so many times. I've probably seen it like over 20 times now. This is the first time I watched it and I was like, this is not as good as I remember. Like this is the first time where like things were actually starting to annoy me. And it was like kind of starting to lose its charm a little bit. And I don't think it'll be long before it ages out, but I don't think I'll ever dislike it because it just like means a lot. But like some
yeah,
of the stuff that they say in the movie, I'm just like, this is fucking annoying. Like there's just like Jesse Eisenberg has like at least 20 lines where I'm like, this guy's a fucking loser.
yeah.
Which is kind of also the
Zombieland,
point, but
Zombieland
um,
was a big favorite of mine when I was a kid, but I can't
it was a
imagine
massive deal. Like I
liking it
don't know, it's
now.
hard to like put these things into perspective because I was so young that I don't like actually know how big of a deal they were culturally, but I remember when the movie came out, all of my friends like in the years that followed would talk about it, and it was like a very common thing for like 12-year-olds to be like, this is my favorite movie. I say 12-year-olds because that's like, those are the people I surrounded myself with, but I'm sure it was like a big cultural thing as
Yo,
well. I was fucking 12, dude. I don't know
bro,
what to talk about.
bro was
Well,
surrounding himself
the
with
movie came out when I was
twelve-year-olds.
the movie came out when I was 9.
Bro
I
was
didn't see
surrounding
it. I
himself with
didn't see it when I was
12-year-olds.
9 though. I probably saw it like a year after or something, or like whenever it got put on TV, like on cable. I watched A Different Man in theaters, a movie that is
We're not.
kind of being talked about as like a fringe Oscar contender, like that not really small theatrical release.
It's another A24 movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite good. It's like quite. I mean, listen,
Yeah,
it
people are liking it.
it's funny because a lot of people are pretty much just saying like this is the substance for boys, which makes it look even worse that I liked that movie and not the substance. But I do think that A Different Man kind of like adds a layer to itself that the substance doesn't really like reach for, that make them like kind of completely different movies. Um and I also just think A Different Man's like a better movie straight up. Like it was just actually a pretty fascinating movie. Um,
I
and both the actually all three of the lead performances are great.
The marketing failed me so hard for A Different Man
Yeah, I mean there
because
wasn't much of it, but
I thought it was a documentary for so long. I thought it was just a documentary about the guy. What's his name?
Adam Pearson.
Yeah, Adam Pearson. I just thought it was a documentary about Adam Pearson
No,
for
I mean
until
it's
like a couple weeks
what's
ago.
Sebastian Stan be in
I
that?
don't know. I
Maybe.
was like, oh, that's interesting. Why is Sebastian Stan in this? You know, I was like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Although some of them, like it's, I didn't really see it until after the movie already released, but I saw like a TikTok the other day of like one of the interview clips with Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson, and I'm like, these guys are awesome. Like it's like I wish there was more market. Like they were having
Yeah.
so much. They had such good like interview chemistry with each other, and they were having such a good time. It was kind of the reason why I went and saw the movie in theaters because I saw that clip and I was like, okay, maybe I need to give this a chance. And it's
Yeah, I saw
good.
a clip too. Adam Pearson seems like a really nice guy, and Sebastian Stan needs to be in good stuff.
No, this is like a real like good thing for Sebastian Stan, I think. I mean, it's a really cool performance. Like what he's kind of asked to do in the movie is
Mhm.
yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, it's funny because I don't know if you guys know the premise. This isn't really like a spoiler, but like Adam Pearson's character, kind of similar to the Substance, like doesn't like the way he looks and is like lonely and depressed, and so he gets this like surgery that makes him look like Sebastian Stan. But then what happens is when he is now Sebastian Stan as like a different person, a guy shows up in his life who looks exactly like Adam Pearson's character previously, but is like full of charisma and like everybody loves him and like everybody wants to be around him. So he sees this guy who looks exactly like the person that he hated and now has to like compete with him for attention and like goes crazy seeing this dude live in the same body as him but like do it successfully.
Mhm.
um and it's really, I don't want to say too much, but it's really good and it goes to some places you probably wouldn't expect. um
That's really
yeah,
interesting. That
it's
sounds
fun.
good.
Some of these are festival screenings and or Halloween. I watched Sherlock Jr.
And
with Doug.
or
We both watched Sherlock Jr. I had already seen Sherlock Jr. previously. I still think it's as great as I did the last time.
Yeah,
Just
that
kind
shit
of
rocks.
endlessly rewatchable. uh And then the last thing I will mention is that yesterday I watched Pulse, which was on my October horror movie list. Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse, which is just like, I mean, he's just like so good at making movies, dude. Like that shit was so cool. It was like so much of like the horror stuff in the movie is kind of like I described it in my Letterboxd review as like when you would play those like internet browser like horror games with like a group of friends. Like you'd log on a website and it's like you like click a clue and then it pops up and then like the envelope goes away and there's like a face behind it and stuff like that, those kind of games. Like that's like what the horror feels like in the movie, except like then everything surrounding those moments is just like a director being amazing at his job. And yeah, it's really interesting, and it's like it's very ahead of its time, internet age commentary kind of stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. I really liked it. It feels like it could be like even in a similar conversation as Cure if I were to watch it as many times as I've seen Cure now. But yeah, that's that. I already hinted at it, so we can move on to New York Film Festival stuff. I think maybe even before we jump into like the movies of the festival, we could just talk about being in New York together a little bit.
Welcome to New
Because
York.
fans of the pod may know that the three of us have never been together in person before. Well, Owen and I have met before, but Owen and
yeah,
I
it's
have not met Doug before.
true.
And so this film festival was the first time that all three of us got to
Yes.
hang out face to face. So if we want to talk about all of that stuff a little bit before we talk about actual movies.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, yeah. It felt supernatural. I don't know. It was chill.
Is that
Yeah.
supernatural or super
Yeah,
natural?
super
Two
based.
words.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I
Check out
agree. I agree.
supernatural.
I think we've spent too much time together now for it to be like
Yeah.
awkward. I think it would have been awkward if we had met in person like a year ago, but
Yeah.
now it's just very normal. It was just like a normal hang. But we did cool things other than watch. I guess we mostly just watched movies, to be fair. But
We went to the Met. We took
yeah,
over
we
the
went to the
Met.
Met. That was fun.
We took over specifically. We spent a lot of time, the three of us together, in like the ancient Chinese portion of the Met. We kind of really
Yeah,
took that part over.
we did do that. What else did we do? We ate a lot of food together.
Bro, I
Yeah.
spent so much
It's
money on
not.
food.
I did. When I saw how much money I had spent in the city over the past 2 weeks, I was like, "This is bad." Like I didn't even know, because it's also like how much money I spent taking the train in from New Jersey and like all the subways that I took in the city, and then
Yeah.
like
It adds up. It adds
everything
up.
surrounding it. And I ordered food one night at my sister's apartment because I was too lazy, and that food delivery prices in New York are like 4 times the amount they are in New Jersey.
Bro
I
was staying in
spent like
Manhattan and still
120 bucks.
Ubered like food,
Well,
still
no, because I
DoorDashed.
did, because I got out of a movie at like 11 o'clock. I had to like take, I had to walk from the one like subway line I normally took to my sister's apartment was like not running, so I had to take an earlier stop and then like walk 25 minutes, and I was fucking exhausted, so I was like, I'm just ordering food while I walk back because I don't feel like going anywhere. And then I realized how much money it costs you to order food in New York, and that's not a thing that people
Yeah.
should do. That was ridiculous. Me and Owen played basketball together. Doug
Mhm.
was not present for that part.
I was
Yeah.
not.
I'm
Um,
trying to
I
see Doug
dodged.
next year.
I
I'm trying to
ducked.
see Doug
yeah.
next year.
No,
Next year we
oh,
can
you
map
guys
out a
need to court,
little
bro.
window of time to actually play basketball. I think now that we've gone through it once, our next year will be like a little bit more organized. Because we'll just know exactly
Yeah,
how it
we'll kind of.
functions.
I
There
mean,
won't be any like stress surrounding it. We'll just kind of know how everything works.
Yeah, I've already been talking to
Um,
some of our friends that were there with us,
Doug's
and
itching to come back to New York.
we're kind of
Doug saw one skyscraper and he was like, "Dude, I gotta be here again immediately."
no. Well, I cannot stress how fucking chill and awesome it was, the trip.
Yeah,
Because
Mhm.
especially because me and Owen stayed with a couple of our friends in a hotel just on Lincoln Square, just like by all the
Yeah.
film festival stuff, and it was so like you just wake up and you just walk out and you're fucking there at the movie theater.
Yeah.
It was so
yeah.
chill, so sick. Um,
We did
yeah.
also, all three of us get to see Megalopolis in the same theater together, but that's a
Oh my
conversation
god.
for when we get to Megalopolis. I was just trying to. We also like saw there's like a small number of people who listen to the podcast came up to us and said hi. Mostly said hi to Owen. There's a specific event I recall. I don't think Doug was there because
uh,
he was on a different side of the theater. But there's a specific event I recall where Owen, George Carmy, friend of the pod, and I were walking into the
and
theater at the
Sophie.
same
Sophie was
time.
there.
Oh yeah, and Sophie. And okay, actually, that Sophie being there makes me feel less bad. But pretty much, this person walked up and said hi to George and Owen, and then
Wait,
just
no, he
like
said
didn't
hi to
say.
me. He recognized me, and
Yeah,
then
he
I was like,
recognized
"Yeah,
Owen, and then after he was like, "Oh, and you're George Carmy,"
yeah,
and then
yeah."
he didn't say anything to me
And
and
then he left.
Sophie,
Yeah.
which is like cool. It's fine, you know. I'm
Shout out that guy. Shout out
probably
that guy.
not a listener of the podcast. Probably like an Owen hates movies
No,
TikTok
yeah.
watcher, and
No,
not
no, no,
a
probably not even
longtime
a
listener.
TikTok watcher. Probably just like an Owen hates no, like an Owen Potnod, like experimental film enjoyer.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Um,
He just
maybe.
how would he know what I look like?
Well, how? Yeah,
you're
how would he know what George Carmy looks
what do
like?
you're
If
in
he's just
you're in
watching Owen
your
shorts.
short films sometimes.
Oh, sure, yeah. That no, it's
Um,
interesting. It's interesting always because he recognized George. He's like, "Oh, you're George Carmy." But when people see me, they like ask, like they're not sure if it's like and then like, but then they knew it was George,
Yeah,
and
well, it's for
it's
you.
always
It's like the
interesting.
height.
I always wonder,
It's
yeah, they're like,
that is a
they're like,
factor. We have
"Damn,
to talk
dude."
about it. Yeah.
Oh my
They're
god.
like, I didn't think he'd talk so much shit online and be this short in person.
No, I don't know. It's
um,
always fun seeing people.
yeah, there's cool things.
We
We could
actually, I
talk
mean, there
about.
were so many like,
Ooh,
you know, like important people there that like it kind of like I kind of very quickly was like I'm not like a crazy like I'm not someone who would like freak out if there was like a famous person in the room, but like it just like very quickly got like normal like by
yeah.
the end of the festival, the amount of like people like we just saw,
Yeah.
like around New York.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was people I saw, like, I texted you guys when I saw Ari Aster walking out of the same screening as me, and I didn't
Yeah.
even, like, no part of me was, like, starstruck by it. I just, like,
Yeah, you say,
felt,
"Oh, it's
for
Ari
some reason,
Aster."
it felt so normal to me. Like, I watched him walk out right
Yeah.
behind me, and I saw, like, somebody say hi to him, and I don't know what they said to him. That probably that they like his movies or whatever. But I saw him, like, talking to a person, and I was just like, "That's
Mhm.
Ari Aster standing right in front of me." And then I just, like, kept
Yeah.
walking.
Maybe, like, it would be different if it was, like, we were, like, somewhere else, but, like, it being the
Right.
festival was like, "Oh, this is where they're supposed to be," you know? Like, it's like, this is where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
There
people.
is there
I
is,
mean,
like,
especially, we
one.
get with the Q&As and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was gonna say. There's one specific instance at a Q&A where I actually felt starstruck that we'll get to in a minute. But I think we should probably start by talking about the 3 movies that all 3 of us watched, because then everything else we could kind of just list off as our own
Okay.
individual experiences.
Okay. Yeah.
Starting with the opening night movie, Nickel Boys, which we all got to see on
Yeah.
opening night. We all liked this movie,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
Nickel Boys was good.
Yeah, I don't
Uh
wanna talk about any of these movies in too much detail because we obviously, like, don't wanna spoil movies that aren't out yet for
Yeah,
people,
I will
but
say this is the one I most, like, need to rewatch to have my full feelings on because I just remember being, like, exhausted watching that
right.
movie, and it was the first movie at the festival. I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting, and this is not really what I expected," and I'm,
no,
like,
yeah.
fucking exhausted.
You guys
And I liked
know.
it. I liked it, but I don't have, like, a full opinion on it, I don't think right now. That's a
I
fair one?
liked Nickel Boys a lot.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
think
it
I
was
do
like
have a pretty full opinion.
way more
Like,
formally. My dogs are barking like right in front of me. They were barking. That was crazy. Um
I didn't hear it.
no, Nickel Boys is way more formally interesting than I thought it was going to be. I
yeah,
knew about like the first person point of view stuff, which like, that's
Yeah.
like a big decision to make about your film. But then even beyond that, there was like some like time lapse and kind of like interesting
Mhm.
montage stuff that and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
really
yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting. Like really really interesting.
yeah, no, I agree. I was, like, kinda blown away by it, and then, like, obviously, I think part of it was, like, the hype of it being the opening night thing that I was, like,
Mhm.
so like enamored by it. But then like even as time has passed, I've thought about it a lot, and I'm like, this is really like kind of a big deal and like a movie that I want to watch again and again. And also, I found out Ramel Ross because I mentioned the documentary of his that I watched. You guys know he's like a hooper, like a full blown. He played
He's a hooper.
basketball.
He's
He
got a
played
mixtape?
basketball at Georgetown. He was an ES.
Oh,
He was a
hell yeah. Oh,
McDonald's
hell
All
yeah.
American. He
Also,
was
I'm trying. That's
like
ridiculous, actually.
a hooper, dude, and he's an amazing director. Like, what are the
That's
odds?
awesome.
He well, what happened? I read that what happened was he played basketball at Georgetown,
You
but
got hurt?
he got injured very quickly, and so he never really like had
Yeah.
much of a college basketball career. But he was like a top 100 prospect in high school, apparently.
That's awesome.
So like that guy could ball, which makes sense because like I mentioned to you guys, his
The
documentary
bet,
like
yeah, yeah.
features a lot of basketball. So like, there's clearly an interest there. But then he just makes Nickel Boys, which is like this unbelievable like narrative
Mhm.
feature debut. Yeah, it's incredible. And then second movie that we all 3 of us saw was The Brutalist, uh, which for me is like the highlight of the festival, I guess. I don't It's weird to say it's the highlight of the festival because there's multiple movies that I loved, but it
Yeah.
is kind of like the movie I'm most happy to say I got to see at the festival because I'm just amazed by its
Yeah,
existence.
it's when you watch it, it's like, "Oh, this is massive. This is, like, gonna be a
Yeah.
really big deal," and I was actually like, I didn't really have too high expectations of it. So one of the films where I was like, "Oh, we gotta watch this because it's a big deal," right? And then, there was an intermission, right? And so Doug is in the back, and I'm, like, in row C. I'm in the front. So the
Yeah.
intermission happens. The guy next to me left, like, at the opening credits. I don't know where he went. So I told Doug, "Come down here." And I'm telling Doug, like, this is something, like, this is really special. And me and Doug kind of were like, yeah, this is really crazy. But that wasn't really like I wasn't expecting it. I was, oh, maybe I might like it. It's a long movie. It's a lot of movie. It kind of I wasn't familiar. I didn't see Vox Lux, so I was like, oh, I have really no idea what this movie is all about. Adrian Brody, great actor, but I, didn't have crazy expectations. Right? Really was uh liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I guess.
I almost skipped this movie.
Yeah, no, Doug
Um,
Yeah.
was like, "Nah, I don't wanna watch it. I'm gonna watch
yeah,
some
well, because
Wang
like,
Bing movie." I was
yeah,
like,
I had seen Vox
Vox Lux, and
Lux,
you didn't
and I'm
like
like,
it.
I like don't care about Vox Lux at
Mhm.
all. So I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, it's the
So
like
you
a
already wrote off him as, like,
yeah, so I just like
the
wrote him off and I was like, I could skip the
Yeah.
brutalist, you know, but then obviously because it's like what Owen said, where it's like it's such a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know when we're gonna be able to see it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was like seeing in the festival, it was so big. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's
we all
yeah.
also were gonna see it, so it's like you might as well
Yeah,
cover
we
both.
all saw it and then we all got food afterwards. It was jolly. But like it was like really major, if
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
tell from what Kevin and Doug.
It's
Kevin
and
and
it's
Owen, Jesus. Said. Um
it's cool too that like we kind of like the hype train for the brutalist kind of perfectly gradually increased in the lead up to us being able to see it, because it
Yeah.
yeah.
like started as a movie that people were talking about as like a it
People were talking about
like
it in, like, a funny way. It was
yeah, there
like,
was like not that much
it
buzz around
it's
it, but
70
it was like
millimeter, and there's
yeah.
it's a lot of film.
Yeah, and then there was like and like the awards talk around it was kind of just that like there's no way, and then
And then you
slowly as
watch
like
it,
New
it's like,
York Film
"Oh, okay."
Festival approached, people were being like, "No, you have to watch this, you have to watch," and it just like built up more and more to the point where like when we were entering the festival, like right at the start, it was like the hyped movie of the
Yeah.
festival, and now it's like even by the end of the festival, by all accounts, like the conversation it was not in before, it is at like the front of now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want to like we talk about like award stuff, but it's weird. It doesn't feel this way culturally. And awards like Oscar stuff doesn't matter, right? But
Right.
it's like but having seen some of these movies, the idea that The Brutalist isn't like the front runner for like all of these Oscars doesn't make any sense. Having seen them, obviously, but that
It
doesn't
doesn't
like
make sense because the movie that you compare it to when you watch it, it's like, "Oh, this is a lot like Oppenheimer," right?
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, if Oppenheimer wasn't directed by Christopher Nolan and didn't have that name attached to it," it's like that's how it feels because it's like if Christopher Nolan directed this, just put his name on it, it's gonna be a bigger deal, but it's the same kind of movie, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, obviously there's differences, but it does remind you a lot of
Yeah.
Oppenheimer when you watch it in terms of that like big kind of massive
Massive.
story about some guy,
Yeah.
with his creation.
Yeah. We could also pivot to one of those other big contenders and big
Mhm,
movies of the festival, I guess, Honora, which is the other one that all three of
mhm.
us
Yep.
watched, the final movie that all three of us watched. And I think, as is true for the last two movies, another movie that all three of us liked.
Yep,
Kind
yep.
of, kind of three
Yeah.
for three on movies that we all saw together.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, these are the big hitters. I mean, opening night and then two really huge names. And
yeah,
I don't know about you guys, but most of the stuff I saw was really great.
man,
So and talking about Nora, I mean, super fun movie. It's gonna be a big hit. Everyone's gonna love this one.
yeah. It's
Really.
like the most crowd pleasing film of the festival, like
Oh yeah,
pretty clearly.
oh
Like
yeah.
it's like
You
everybody's
felt
gonna
it in
watch
the
it
room.
and love it and like have a great laugh.
Yeah.
And I mean, it feels almost dismissive because there's like more there than just that. But like in terms of just like watching it in a full theater of people, there's
Mhm.
going to be big reactions to the movie. Like it's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of people laughing and having a good time.
Mhm.
And it's pretty contagious. And Mikey Madison is obviously
Oh,
terrific.
incredible. Yeah.
Um, and
I
that'll be a big
I
conversation.
really like. I mean, not to like go too far into it, but Mikey Madison in terms of the in just the whole ensemble is I think really terrific.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
I
Sean
agree.
gets really great performances out of his actors.
Yeah. Uh, Doug, any Honora thoughts before we move
Yeah,
on to
no,
individual
I
stuff?
like Sean Baker a lot.
Yeah,
I'm a really big fan of all of Sean Baker's films that I've seen. I haven't seen Starlet or Takeout, but you know he doesn't really miss for me, and I think Honora is great. It's his funniest movie. I
yeah,
think is my biggest takeaway that I could say to
That
people
you've
that haven't
seen.
seen it. Yeah, that I've seen, of course.
sure.
But it's
Yeah,
like it's very like it's so funny that it's like it's kind of veering on the screenplay veers on like studio comedy
Oh yeah,
almost.
no,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, which I think was good for me as someone who hadn't seen his films as like an opening of like it's because it's really digestible.
Hmm.
And like in terms of that kind of style and tone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to quickly run through the movies that we kind of just watched. Other than those three, we could go in order, similar to weekly watches, and just kind of rattle
Yeah.
off our thoughts on them. Some of these movies are going to be movies that like two of us have seen, but not all three of us.
Yeah, a
I
good
think.
chunk, I would
But
say.
I could go first if we want. Other than those three we just mentioned, I saw No Other Land, a documentary that still, I believe, does not have distribution in America.
It doesn't?
Um,
No Other Land?
Yeah,
well, that
makes
was the
sense.
conversation at least a week ago. I imagine that has not changed yet,
Let's
but
see.
uh, a movie that should have distribution, hopefully. And when it does, people should watch it. It's a really, really good movie. The
Oh yeah, it
filmmakers were
doesn't.
there in person, kind of talking about how
Mhm.
important it is, and I think really what. Listen, not that this stuff matters. Not like as a piece of documentary filmmaking, it's not the most impressive, but there is a conversation that happens towards the end of the movie that kind of like really elevates it, where these two people who from their perspective obviously kind of like are feeling hopeless because they're there in Palestine right now. Obviously they flew to America to promote the movie, but uh they're having this conversation about kind of people in America making TikToks or like protesting or whatever, and kind of saying that like, does any of what these people are doing actually help us? And then they pretty quickly come to the conclusion that it doesn't. But it's not to say that you shouldn't do those things, but like it's more that they're like kind of calling people out for like being complacent and saying that like
Yeah.
the little things that you think you're doing to help are not enough, and like you should be doing even more if you actually really care. And I think that's really like when the documentary hits like a great moment. And it's just important. People should watch it. I mean, I don't have to tell you this.
Yeah.
Maria, I was really surprised by. That's the moment that I alluded to earlier, where I was a bit starstruck. Angelina Jolie is the only person I saw at the entire festival where I was like, "Oh, that's like a mega star. Like that's like
Mhm.
a person who feels like greater than a human being." I was like, I've never, like being in the same room as somebody like that is just nuts.
You got
And
starstruck from Angelina Jolie?
yeah, well, I saw her walking into the building right before I went into the screening. I saw her get out. I was just like, I was leaving another screening and I was walking down the sidewalk and I saw a bunch of people taking pictures. And I was like, I wonder who they're taking pictures of. And then Angelina Jolie walks out of her car right in front of me and into the building. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then I'm sitting fourth row for Maria. So I'm so close to the stage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, she was awesome during the Q&A. And she's awesome in the movie. Truly, if I had to pick right now, it might be my favorite performance of any of the performances I saw at the festival, but that's I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But as far as like the lead actress Oscar goes, she until I see any other performances, she's kind of my favorite. And the movie's really good, better than I thought it would be. Amelia Perez is a movie that I saw. The Seed of the Sacred Fig is awesome. Probably, other than The Brutalist, my favorite movie that I saw at the festival.
That's one I
Um,
wanted to see and, didn't.
it
Uh,
it's just so listen, it's like very me, but it's just like if you told me right now, I said this in a TikTok. If you told me right now, like just like which movie do I want to rewatch like immediately, just in terms of like that would be the easiest for me to rewatch, it's this one. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. It flies by. It's so interesting. It's like the whole first like almost 2 hours of the movie are just kind of like political debates between this family, because of like these like student protests that are going on, and like the family kind of like being like, you can't be involved in these, like this is, like don't do that stuff. And then like the last 45 minutes of the movie just turn into like a full-blown action thriller, like near horror movie.
That's
It's
crazy.
crazy. It's so intense. It's like it goes to a place that like you could not even imagine, and some people are going to hate that, but
Mhm.
those moments are so fucking good that like it just made me fall in love with the movie. It's really good. And it incorporates kind of like internet stuff in a really interesting way. It has like moments where they're like showing TikToks on screen and like YouTube videos and stuff in a way that like some people might hate, but I thought was actually pretty good. Um, I saw Oh Canada with Owen, which I liked but didn't love. But like a lot of
Mhm.
people are gonna
Yeah.
hate it, and I think that's kind of dumb. I mean, it's fine, but like I do think the movie has a little bit more to say than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, I think
Um,
this is another one that I think is, I mean, I wasn't. It's not like that I was tired or anything, but it's one that I like to watch again and chew on a little more because it's one of those ones where you watch it and you're like, okay, I wanna, like, I want, but then it's like there's stuff there. I wanna investigate this. I don't think I fully digested it all first watch.
yeah,
And I think Paul Schrader's got a lot to say. I think it's interesting as a late work, and I think there's some really interesting formal stuff as well. And I think Richard Gere is incredible. Uma Thurman, who was there at the Q&A, was great. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, especially like in his late catalog. It feels similar, but it also feels like a one that stands out, and also it feels like one that's like, yeah, this is one a movie that would be in like someone's late catalog that would just kind of like fall through the cracks and be kind of
right.
a forgotten movie. It almost feels like already before it even has come out. It's like this one might be one that is less talked about. But I did really enjoy it. I'm not like I'm always have felt this way with Schrader, and I don't know, maybe I have to see some of his bigger ones, but I was like, oh, this is really good, but there's something that's not really entirely working for me. But I do like it, and I do like watching his movies, and I do like, you know, his whole thing going on there. But it's not my favorite, in order to just all come together for me. But I think it's just another solid entry for him.
Yeah. Hard Truths is a movie that only I saw that I kind of said before that Honora is like the crowd pleaser of the festival, but like really, if you want to just like have a good time at the movies and like guaranteed,
Yeah,
whenever Hard Truths comes out, like it is like by far the funniest movie of the festival for me. Like I was laughing so much, and then it like really sneaks up on you and just like makes you kind of ugly cry, honestly. It's and the environment in the theater is like nothing else I saw at the festival. Everybody was like having the time of their life, and it was the only movie where after just immediately the whole crowd like rises to their feet, like super loud round of applause. Like nobody even wanted to sit down. Like it was just like electric in there. Because the movie really warrants it. Like it's such a good time. And it's just like, I had just watched my first Mike Lee movie like right before seeing this, and I think as a writer he's fascinating. As a director he's like obviously really talented, especially as a director of actors. It's like kind of unbelievable. um yeah, Hard Truths is just like a must watch whenever that is available for people. The Shrouds is so good.
yeah,
People
no,
people are gonna hate that movie so much. People are gonna
people
hate that movie.
already hate
People
that
are
movie.
going sure, but like when it comes out, like people are gonna hate that movie more than the movie we're talking about on this podcast episode. I really like do think like
I mean,
it's
less people are gonna see it.
sure, but
Right?
but people are
Yeah,
Are you sure
not
about
no.
gonna
that? Are you sure?
I mean, it's gonna be talked about less.
actually. Yeah, it's pretty close,
It's gonna be
probably.
talked about less. It is.
um,
I mean, it is.
it's
I don't
so
know.
good, dude.
It's less marketable than Crimes of the Future. Like
Yeah,
it's like
Well,
I
Crimes of
don't
the
uh,
know.
Future is kind of like this like freaky sci-fi movie. There's like something
right.
Yeah,
there to market.
this
There's
one
like
is like
It's not that. It's
no.
not that, dude. There's I actually
uh,
don't even know how you try to sell like the average
it's like
moviegoer on this movie.
Megalopolis. Like it's hard to sell, but like people talked about it. It was like it's a moment right now. It's like no one's gonna talk about this movie.
Yeah.
Um,
I would be
incredible,
surprised if like a
incredible
regular
picture.
person doesn't just walk out of this movie. Like if any regular
Oh,
person just
oh
like
yeah,
buys a ticket, like how old people just kind of like show up at the movies and buy a ticket to whatever's playing like on a Tuesday afternoon. There's
yeah,
no way they don't just walk out of this. Like it's so I
yeah.
can't imagine this working for like 99% of people. It works so much for me. It is the
It's so
movie like
good. It's so good.
by a significant margin, the movie that I've thought about the most since the festival has ended. Like I
Yeah,
can't wait to
no,
rewatch
it's
it. Like it's unbelievable. I tried to put it into words in a conversation I had recently, and there's like too much to talk about without talking about the contents of the movie.
yeah.
So I'll just leave it at that. But
No,
like
I was
it is a
even
movie to look out for.
it's not a movie that my mom would like, but I was even talking to her about the way it deals with grief and how fascinating it is.
Yeah.
I don't I think it's really singular and special. And
Yeah.
it is
It feels
still it
so
does
ahead of
stand.
its time too. Like it's
Yeah,
so
no.
smart.
It's I mean I liked I mean we talked about this like on separate other movies, but I think it definitely deals with modern tech in like a really awesome way, and it kind of
Yeah.
looks at it as like the future is like now, right? Like it's like very futuristic and Cronenbergy, but it's also like has like FaceTime and like these like avatar things, and it's very like modern, but like the modern stuff being the futuristic stuff at the same time with all other futuristic stuff. It's like you'll have like very like tech that doesn't exist meshed with tech that does exist now, but they're treating it like it's the same. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting stuff going on with that element of the film. I think it's very fascinating. But yeah, like you said, it does feel ahead of its time in a way that like not a lot of people are gonna really like now. But I do think it's gonna be like for people who love Cronenberg, it's gonna be a big hit for sure. Like people are gonna love this if you're fans of his
Yeah.
work.
I'm so mad I couldn't see this. I'm so
Yeah,
mad
dude,
I
you would
couldn't see
love it.
this.
Yeah.
It's so
Oh
good.
my gosh.
Like it's so good. I saw EFIS, which Owen recommended to me.
Ephus!
It was not a planned screening for me, and then they sold additional tickets, like last minute
Yeah.
additional tickets, and Owen sent me the tweet saying that they sold them, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I could do another
And I
three
was
movie
like, you have
day.
to do
And
it.
then
You
Owen
have to
told me
do
that I
it.
have to watch it, and so I did a 3 movie day where I literally on this day I woke up and ate breakfast at 9 a.m. and I did not get to eat another meal until 10 p.m. that night. But it was worth it, I
Yeah.
guess. So the first of the 3 movies I saw that day, EFIS.
Mhm.
Uh, it's so cool if only they weren't playing baseball in it. And I know Owen doesn't feel the same way,
No,
but like
actually, I
if
will tell you this. I'm like baseball's I'm like there's some like baseball in my brain right now, and I've like been really
yeah,
thinking
well,
about it.
have
And I
you
want to watch that like really like what's that? You know the long like the baseball movie where it's like just like the history of it's like a mini series, but it's on
Oh
Letterboxd.
yeah,
It's
it's
like
a
a thousand.
documentary, like
It's
the
like
history of
it's just
baseball.
I'm
right.
like going to watch that because I've been like in baseball mode right now, and baseball has been like
The playoffs are
That's probably
going
like the
on
most
right now.
boring fucking documentary in the
no,
world,
no, no,
bro.
no, no. I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna lock in. But like I've always like football and basketball were like very easy for me to latch onto, and
The
I never
Ken
really got.
Burns
I
documentary.
never yes the Ken Burns documentary. I never really got into hockey or baseball, and I mean I played baseball growing up. It was something like I just played baseball, but I wasn't like watching or like I never had a team or anything. But this movie I was like. And I watched the James Benning baseball movie, and it's like it's an interesting thing in terms of like the connection to baseball to film, where I think some sports just translate better, and some sports there's just more like connection. Where it's like there's not a lot of football. I mean, I did watch the Warren Beatty movie, but like football and even basketball, like there are movies, right? But I think there's something about baseball, the slowness of it that does
Yeah.
translate better on film, where you have football and basketball are just so fast paced that it doesn't work as well.
Yeah. Well, it's
Um,
harder for the things that the movie like wants to do
exactly.
to work in another sport.
Yes.
So I can't really blame it for that. It's just that like
Yeah, yeah, no,
I
I
it
get it.
almost
I
made me
get it.
like
I
I'm
get it.
so serious and this makes me feel bad because it's just like like the film's not doing this on purpose and it's not even a fault of the film, but
Yeah.
like I almost care less about the characters because they're playing
Because they're
baseball.
playing
Like
baseball.
I literally
Did you
think
never
I
play
think I would
baseball growing
like
up?
them.
You don't play
No,
baseball
well,
growing
so
up?
I when I was a kid, everybody did like little league baseball, and I
Yeah.
was never interested. But I just like would frequent my friends' games, so I would hang out at the
Okay.
little league fields, and I would like play like between games, whoever wasn't playing, like you'd play like running bases and stuff, like
Yeah,
play all
yeah,
the
yeah,
games,
yeah.
and like and the little league fields had the best fucking funnel cake in the world, so I would get that shit all the time. Like I would live there
Yeah.
and just get funnel cake every. It was like $1 for funnel cake. It was the best deal.
Mhm.
I don't know how that was profitable for big funnel cake, but it was
I
it
don't know if you know
was
what funnel
so
cake's made out of, buddy, but
sure,
it's
but it's the point is it was like it was the best thing ever as a kid.
Mhm. Okay.
So like I liked being at the fields, but I never like
Mhm.
played myself. But like watching baseball games in person I could do. It's like quite
Oh,
fun.
yeah. No, it's
But just because like I don't know, the movie just like I just don't care about baseball players, honestly. Like it's like
yeah.
I don't know. But the actual filmmaking is like
Mhm.
awesome.
Oh, it's
It's like
incredible.
it's such a cool debut. Like everything it's like wanting to say it does so like
Mhm.
very well. It's literally like a situation where it's just like I could not
Yeah,
get
it's
past
just
the
the
baseball
baseball.
thing. Like I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And then the second movie of that day, All We Imagine as Light, is a movie that I want to rewatch like immediately because it's very slow. and like it doesn't really have any big moments. Like all its best moments are these kind of like very understated, like small things that like until the movie is over, you don't realize have so much meaning. So it makes me just kind of want to like watch it again immediately. It's a gorgeous movie. It's a like I said, because of that, it's kind of difficult to talk about because it's like such like small like things that make it so impactful. It's kind of like impossible to like say much about it without like ruining those things for people. But it's just like something you really have to experience. And I think a lot of people, if they're willing to like sit with it and like know what kind of movie they're going into, are gonna have a really good time because it's beautiful. And then Blitz, I was just really let down by as the final movie of the festival for me. I like Steve McQueen. And
This is
now
your
I'm
own fault
seeing
getting let down by Blitz. I'm sorry.
it's
Ooh,
like
someone
not
liked it.
though, like, it's
Some
like
critic liked
yeah.
it.
Well, Robert Daniels, who
Yeah,
I
so
Yeah,
follow,
Robert Daniels
gave it a
liked it.
positive review, and I read that review, and I was like, "That's a good perspective, I guess." Um, I just don't think any of that stuff's true. It's like I'm sure you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, like, it's like the things I get it. I I I get I get why somebody could like the movie. Um, I just like the old-timey, like, wartime movie thing about it is just so fucking bland to me. Like I just that stuff does not interest me at all. And I think if I'm going to like a war film, it either has to be an old timey war film or it just has to be something completely different. And this is just like in the middle of those two things. And the script just pissed me off. I'm sure it doesn't bother some other people, but it's like it sticks out so much, dude, and it makes it a pretty brutal watch. The performances are great. Steve McQueen knows how to direct a movie. Like that's still true, I guess. But
Is it?
it's
They're
just
saying it's not.
I don't think it's like I think the
They're
script
saying he's
They're
I think
washed.
saying
the
he's
script is
washed.
more I think the script is more at fault than the directing, but he wrote the script. So that's not he's not exactly spared by that. And I just think it's a fucking boring, bland movie. Like I just think
Right.
it's just not the kind of thing that I would want to watch ever. But it's it's fine. It's like perfectly acceptable streaming war movie.
Is Blitz the only movie you think is a bad movie you
No,
watched
I
that?
skipped completely over Amelia Perez,
Oh, I forgot about Amelia Perez.
which is like dog shit. Like
Trans cinema. Contemporary trans cinema.
it's so much worse than Blitz. I mean, it's like if you made 1,000 blitzes.
If you made 1,000
It's
blitzes.
so bad. No, yeah, that movie's a stinker. Anyway, that's my experience. I know Owen, you already talked about some of the movies that you also saw that I watched. So if you want to go next, you can mention the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a couple extra, like, I mean, not a new film, but me and Doug did see the Four Nights of Dreamer 4K restoration that they showed at
Oh,
the EBM Center. Great,
yeah.
kind of amazing film.
What
I
you know about Robert Bresson?
yeah, no, he's incredible. I mean, obviously I've talked about his films on this podcast before, but I've seen all of his black and white pictures, and I've seen, one of his color films, but I haven't seen a color film in a while from him. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like you see someone this great that has been working on perfecting images and how he wants the images to work in the black and white, and then he gets color, and it's like, oh, this isn't fair. It's a beautiful film, a lot of great colors, very you can see where many different contemporary filmmakers were inspired by this film. Like Linklater comes to mind. But yeah, really, really loved this one. And then a couple others. I mean, I saw this movie called Harvest, which is probably like my least favorite of the festival. It's fine. It was shot by Sean Price Williams, who was in the. He didn't. It was weird. They came out and they were like, all right, here's the people who are here for the movie, and Sean Price Williams is here, but he doesn't want to come up to the stage. So he's in somewhere in the crowd. He's just like he was just watching the movie, but he didn't want to come up on the stage, which was like really it was odd. I don't know. No one else did that at the time of the festival. It was a fine movie.
Yeah,
Um,
not not a normal experience.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
I
Sean Price Williams shot zeros and ones. That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really interesting film cinematographer, and one that, like, it's a recognizable name. With some, he's a younger guy who has some good credits under his belt. Me and Doug, we saw Happy End, which was going hand in hand with Ephus, one of my biggest surprises of the festival. Neo Sora's kind of fictional narrative debut, really really incredible um, film that I was kind of blown away with. And yeah, I could probably say my favorite of the festival in terms of like a technical standpoint. Really, really just works for me in the way that it's like something that I kind of am looking for formally, but rarely like see in contemporary cinema. And it's also really fun. It's really it's a great. There's just so much that works for it for me. I really can't wait for everyone to see it when it comes out, because there's a lot to talk about on that one. Um, I saw Leos Carax's "It's Not Me," which is like a 40 minutes film. It reminded me a lot of like late Godard, and kind of this like essay film. But it's very much a self portrait of a filmmaker, and a self portrait of a filmmaker that I'm not too familiar with. I haven't seen his other films, so I think this would be a film that I would get more out of if I was like a really big fan of his and have seen all of his movies. Because he's referencing himself, he's referencing Annette and Holy Motors and stuff, and those are just films I haven't seen yet, and I haven't got around to it, but I do want to. I think he is an interesting filmmaker. I did like it as a film. I think it is funny. There's like a Polanski joke in it. There's a lot of like funny jokes in it. Like he'll just like throw some guy's face up and he'll just like make a joke about them, or I don't know. It's very like essay film, structural jokes. It's really fun. And I saw Pavements. Not I know some of the Pavement songs, but I'm not like a huge Pavement fan. And I went to that. That was the end of my 3 movie day. I saw It's Not Me, and then I saw Ephus. I got Ephus tickets like while I was waiting for It's Not Me to start, which is the Leo's Carax film. And I was like super pumped about that. I saw Ephus, and I immediately walk out of Ephus, and then I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why are there so many people out here? And then Sean Fantasy walks by me. I'm like, what's going on? Why are so many people here? And apparently, hella people were here for Pavements, like big Pavement heads in the building. I saw people with Pavement T-shirts, and I was like, there's probably people who haven't seen, not going to a single movie this festival, but are just super big Pavement fans. They're like, oh, I'll go see that, right? They're usually in New York. So it was a packed crowd, and there was like, people were like laughing, and really a lot of interaction with the crowd, like really high energy, like one of the better crowds of the whole festival. But I was not expecting that for the Alice Ross Perry Pavements movie. It's a solid movie. I think it does a lot of interesting stuff with the kind of musical biopic documentary thing. I haven't seen so in class last week we watched like the first 40 minutes of the Todd Haynes Bob Dylan movie with it's like Christian Bale, and it's Kate Blanchett, and it has, and I immediately was like, oh, okay, I think Alex Ross Perry definitely saw this movie and was inspired to do like a very kind of more, I think, unique take on the kind of musical biopic, rather than doing like what they're doing with the Bob Dylan movie with Timothée Chalamet, just like a straightforward like Bohemian Rhapsody thing. So it is interesting. I don't think like what are you saying?
That's what it seems like.
It was like a Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, I mean, it's so like, it's not saying that they're the same movie, but I'm saying,
I mean,
like,
that's what it looks like they're trying to make. That's the goal.
It is the kind of like typical narrative biopic.
Yeah.
Where I think these movies very differ, and they're trying to do something different. I think it might work for me more if it was of a band I really cared about. But I do think there are a lot of formal, and just kind of narrative ideas that are interesting enough to keep me like liking it and engaged. It did feel a little long, but I think that has to do with me not being a big fan of the band.
Have you seen Alex Ross Perry's other stuff? Because he's a little bit of a cult filmmaker.
No, I haven't. Right. That was another thing, is I wasn't too familiar with the band or the director, but I kind of just threw it on there as like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, people like when he mentioned Her Smell, like the crowd kind of erupted, and people definitely do like him as a filmmaker. But I haven't seen his films. And then I did the one other, I guess it's two, but the one other film that I went to that we haven't talked about yet was the two Godard shorts, which is Godard's last film. And then it's Godard's last film, and then it's like the documentary about the making of this, and the guy was working with it and kind of helped craft this film was there for the Q&A, and it's a very fascinating process in the way that this film got made, where Godard had like all these notepads, and he was kind of he would tell this guy, I'm forgetting his name, but he would tell the guy who was working on the film with him, this is what I want, this is what I want, and very like articulate the way the thing, but then he would be like, do you want to see it or whatever, and he would be like, no. And Godard was, he died of assisted suicide. He had a day where he was going to die, and he was like, and he could push it back if he wanted to, but he was like, no, I've set this day, and this is the day I'm going to die, and I'm going to make this film, and I'm going to work on it. We're going to work on it. And they were working on it like the week of his death. They were working on this film, and he never saw it, but he was telling him like exactly what to do. And it's very, it's very much like a late Godard film, similar to the past works, the past couple. Very fascinating to watch it back to back with the documentary. One again that I'd like to see again, just because it's a lot, and in a theater setting you can't, there are films that you like to take in, like, because they're short. The actual film itself is like 15 to 18 minutes, so it's quick, but it's also, there's so much on the screen, and it's it's one that I don't know, it was a lot emotionally, and knowing that it's like his last film, and very much has to do with death, and then watching the documentary after was really great. But yeah, I mean, Godard's incredible. So many fantastic films, and it was good. It was funny to be like, oh, this is the first Godard you see in theaters, and it's like his last film, and it was a very interesting experience. I said that with Devin, but that was the last one that I haven't talked about. I don't know. I mean, I know Doug has a couple that you haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, I just need to. It's time to go a little Wang Bing here.
Yeah.
Right.
The films that I watched by myself that nobody else that we were with saw were the last two Wang Bing films. He has this project called Youth, and it's this trilogy of films, but it's really like this one big documentary project where he follows um these people that work in these textile like sweatshops in this one city in China. And it is a massive project where they're like simultaneously shooting in multiple different textile shops while with like a bunch of different camera operators, and we're kind of like cutting back and forth between all these places with all these different human beings that we're meeting because it's a documentary. And it's really, really good. It's really, really good. It's my favorite thing I saw at the festival was it's called Hard Times. They're all called Youth, but they have different subtitles. And Hard Times is the second of the three of them, and it's also the longest. It's like 4.5 hours long, but it is really getting down to the nitty gritty of like what is going on. And there's like these extended scenes where workers are like negotiating with like the managers for wages, and it's all like really, really interesting. And there's like this extended interview where one of the camera operators is talking to a worker who's laying in bed, and the worker's talking about how much he hates living in China, and how he like hates the government, and how he has this experience where he was protesting something, and he like experienced kind of like police brutality firsthand from living in China, and how like it was like a very like it was just like an unbroken like 30-minute conversation with this guy, and it was like, wow, it feels so real, and it's so like you're just like the slice of reality, that you just like are kind of like immersed in, that you don't really get to see. And then the second of this pair of three movies that I watched, like the final one, it was shorter. It's funny because Wang Bing was there and he was doing the Q&A, and he also introduced them. And when he introduced this last one, he said, "Yeah, I'm not happy with this movie. It's the shortest one. We ran out of money."
It's
Which it's funny because it is like the shortest by like 100 minutes. It's like 100 minutes shorter than the previous
yeah.
one. And that one they spent a lot more time in like the villages, like the countryside of China, because a lot of the people that come in and work at these textile sweatshops, they're people that work in like these legit straight up villages in the fucking mountains, and they come down, they live in the sweatshops for 6 months, get enough money for the rest of the year, then go back and support their families that live in the mountains. And it was like it was him in the mountains with all these people, and it was crazy. It was really like a reality so removed from the reality that I experienced. It was really interesting. So I that's what I saw. And I really needed to make sure to check that out. And it was really cool to have like Q&As. It's interesting. I said this to you guys when I was there, but the crowds were so Chinese when I saw both of these movies in the theaters. And it was an open Q&A, so like all the Q&A questions were asked from the crowd, and every
Yeah.
single question was asked from somebody in Chinese. Like it was so not what happens usually
In Nebraska.
where I am in
Yeah.
Nebraska. Yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah,
Are there additional movies, or are those the two that you didn't?
those were the
I
only
mean-
two that you guys
Okay.
didn't mention that
Okay.
I saw.
That means we could jump into Megalopolis. I wonder. I had a little like. It's not really a game, but I had a quick like thing to throw at you guys.
Oh, okay.
Maybe just to get the energy up. I was
Yeah,
gonna do it
let's
at
go.
the end of
Let's let it
Megalopolis,
go.
but just to get the energy up, we could
Let's
do it at
go.
the beginning. So it's just letterboxed one-liners or like cut out portions of reviews, and you just gotta tell me what you think the star rating is, and whoever gets closer wins. For each one.
For Megalopolis?
Yes, for Megalopolis.
Okay,
These are all one-liners or portions of reviews, and whoever gets closer, unless it's the same distance, then just fucking scratch it, whatever. Okay. This shit is ass, but I laughed, but also not ass and endearing? ?
2.5 stars with a
Wait,
heart.
Can you say again?
This shit is ass, but I laughed, but also not ass and endearing? ?
Like 1 star.
Okay, Doug gets the point, but neither of you were near the review. That's a
Oh, it's
5-star review.
Dude, that's
Oh,
ridiculous.
damn.
That's so ridiculous.
That's
Being like
ridiculous.
it's ass then 5 stars is so stupid.
That
Okay.
is that's ridiculous.
So funny how this is the prettiest looking and the ugliest looking movie ever at the same time.
Okay,
Half star.
No comments on the reviews, by the way, because you guys are going to disagree with all of the everything
sorry,
people
I'm
are
sorry.
saying in these reviews. You
I'm
guys are
sorry.
going to disagree
okay,
with. So we can
4
talk about that
stars.
portion.
4 stars.
Okay, Doug is closer. It was 2 stars.
Oh my god.
Okay, maybe
Um,
half star is kind of ridiculous. I shouldn't do that.
Embarrassingly sincere, throwing everything at the screen, hard to watch, impossible to forget, blending high and low art, slapstick, Shakespeare, reality TV, hideous CGI. I want to see it again.
This is a 5-star review.
Yeah, it's gotta be 5 stars. Four
Both of you
stars.
5
4
stars?
stars.
Owen gets the point. It's 4 stars.
Well, I was like, if it's like 3.5,
Yeah.
I gotta go the under.
It legitimately looks like $120 million Tommy Wiseau movie.
Fuck you. I'm sorry. It's a 1-star review, right? It's
2
Owen?
stars.
It is a 1-star review.
Okay. I just want to play the game.
Okay. Perfect, no notes with 3 fire emojis.
yeah, that's a half-star review, right?
1 star.
Owen's closer. It's 2.5 stars.
Okay. It's
Okay,
the
last
game.
one. I believe Doug has a 3-2 lead here. So if Owen gets this one, then we just call it a tie. This is a cocaine movie in a marijuana world.
What the fuck?
ooh, 4 stars. That's a 4-star review. That's a positive review.
5.
Doug wins. It's 4 stars.
Oh, there we
I
go.
wasn't gonna say what he said.
Okay. Now we got the blood flowing. Let's talk about Megalopolis.
All right.
Let's fucking talk about Megalopolis, bro.
I don't think
That's
you
what
guys
the people
agree
have
with a
been wanting.
single thing in one of those reviews, by the way.
No.
it's a cocaine movie and whatever.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
a cocaine movie, kind of.
Yeah, will you agree with some? I mean, there's some stuff. The Shakespeare, there's stuff in there.
It is objectively Shakespeare. He does this. He does the Hamlet thing.
He
Right,
walks out.
right.
He like starts just quoting Shakespeare.
Such a massive movie in relation to the podcast that I'm not sure where the conversation begins.
It's also we saw this movie 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, you
And
guys have seen
we're-
it more than once, though. and
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
saw it in the same 24-hour span.
Sure, but like it's easier to remember a movie that you watched twice in
Sure,
24
it does
hours.
feel removed, and it's removed in its interesting way. And I really want to see it again, just because it's so. It's one of those things. Where I want to see it as many times as I can, and theaters have just been busy. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We've kind of been building up to it for a while now. It being this massive movie by a director that we talk about a lot on here, Francis Ford Coppola, and we all really enjoyed it. But it is a tough one to kind of, where do you start? Um, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you said it. We all enjoyed this movie. We talked about this movie a lot. It was kind of a joke, almost, with
Yeah.
how not
Well,
like
Doug
literally a joke,
well,
as in
Doug
like
was
and not
going around
sincere.
mentioning like the running joke in New York was that every time anything happened, we would be like, "Oh, it's kind of like that time in Megalopolis."
mhm.
Yeah,
And so we
the
No,
thing
referenced
but
about
it
that is
really
we weren't
Megalopolis
was.
even
I mean,
joking. It
endlessly.
just really was.
Yeah,
Megalopolis
no,
is
like a
really
lot of
every.
things are just reminding us of
You know,
Megalopolis.
Megalopolis is a reflection of
Well,
of
there
our
was
here
also a
living.
moment where I was like, "This is weird how much that's like Megalopolis." Where we were at a party, friend of the pod Sophie's party,
Oh yeah,
and there was a shadow of somebody like
yeah.
projecting onto the side of a building, like
Mhm.
their huge shadow on the side of a building, and it's
Oh, and
like
I was like, this is just literally
that's
Megalopolis.
literally just it's like it's crazy that we
Yeah.
just saw that happen. Like that is like a scene straight out of Megalopolis. It's
Mhm.
like kind of unbelievable coincidence that we witnessed that.
Me and Owen were sitting next to each other during The Brutalist, which is an incredible film, which we already kind of alluded to. The
Yeah.
credits start rolling on The Brutalist, and me and Owen turn to each other and we're like, "Yeah, it was like that part of Megalopolis, right? Were you thinking about that?"
Yeah,
And then
we started talking about a scene from Megalopolis.
yeah, and then the guy next to us was like, "You guys are fucking freaks, You guys are fucking
He
sickos."
said something to you guys?
Yeah, he said, yeah.
Damn.
Oh, oh yeah. No, but it was. It was
It
just like
was.
Megalopolis.
That's the thing. Everything was like Megalopolis. It is like kind of like this omnipresent like film. It
Yeah,
is such
but I
a
mean, when you talk about Megalopolis and it being this like 40 years worth of ideas, and then you kind of take back, think about it, and just like it's tackling so much, and there's so much going on. But when you can like that, it's I don't know. One of the conversations about the movie is like it's kind of impossible to follow, and like you can't really, and that's immediately like the thing that I mentioned in my review, and like getting out of it the first time. I was like, oh, okay. Like I was expecting the narrative to be so messy that I was like, I have no idea what the fuck's going on right now. And there's a lot, and there's a lot happening on the screen. There's a lot happening on the page, but I don't think it's that hard to follow. I think it's I don't know, it's just tackling a lot of things, but a lot of things are just going in my brain, and like I'm digesting it pretty easily. I think it's not like too confusing in that way. And then now I'm like, you leave the theater and it's like Megalopolis is everywhere. He's tackling so much, and it works, and it kind of I see it. It's very it's very interesting film, and I think it is, when you step back from this year, it's like it's the even if it's not your favorite movie of the year, it is kind of the movie of this year in terms of like what we're talking about. It's just so it does feel so big that it's just not like it's not right. It's not the regular week here
Right.
for sure.
yeah, it is. I'm thinking back to Cannes when
Mhm.
Cannes was happening,
Yeah,
and we got the like kind of first
first
reactions from the
reactions.
public and critics out of
Mhm.
Cannes, and everybody was like, "Oh," because I remember it was funny because we were like, "Oh, like what's gonna win the Palme d'Or?" Because there was like no like obvious like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
movie yet,
And we're like
and
Megalopolis.
yeah, we're like, "Oh, and
So
Megalopolis is playing in
naive.
comp, right?" And we
Yeah,
were like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so interesting! Like it's actually playing
It's
in
Francis Ford
competition."
Coppola.
Yeah.
It's
And then it became so immediately obvious where it's like, oh, this is not winning, not only not winning the
yeah.
Palme d'Or, this is winning nothing. This is winning
Yeah.
absolutely no
Yeah, and
awards.
I think
Um,
it it easily cemented like, oh, this is what this is gonna be.
yeah.
And it was is someone familiar? We're familiar, or at least seeing Twixt. All of us seeing Twixt, but I seeing his all of his later works, the past couple. When it was like, oh, this is not winning anything, I was like, oh, okay, this is just a big budget version of like Twixt, Youth Without Youth, and Tetro. It's like it's like not like he like was like, oh, I'm just gonna do The Godfather again. It's like, oh, I'm doing, and like everything we've kind of talked about building up to it is like we weren't expecting that, but like the Can reaction was really the final nail in the coffin of being like, okay, this is like really him doing the movie he wants to make. Just
Yeah.
it's massive. It's just massive this time, and that
Yeah.
was the coolest thing. We're watching this movie. It's like no one else is making this movie because you can't make this movie unless you sell your wine company and put $120 million on the line and work on this movie for 40 years. Like, this movie does not exist without those really specific circumstances. That's just, it's never going to happen again, like specifically like this. But you just can't make this movie on this scale without, that, which is, it's a miracle that it works the way it does. And it's a miracle that the film kind of exists in that way because of, obviously the way that the system works. Films like this just don't exist.
It's funny that you say it's a miracle that it works the way it does, because that is like an only us thing almost. Like people fucking hate this movie so much. Even your like digital cinephiles hate this movie, and they're talking about like I don't know the reactions.
People who like it.
So
I think people really into digital are like, oh, it's beautiful, but I think it's dumb. I mean that's a common thing of like I think it's really stupid, but I think it's it has pretty moments. But I obviously we disagree. Kevin, what do you say?
No, I was gonna ask you guys if you think it's like going to have a reclamation like soon, or if it's just going to have this reputation for a long time.
Not soon. I think it will age well. I think it will be like a film that people look back on, especially like when Coppola is gone and when we're like decades removed. I think it'll be one where it's like the late period. I think in total will be something that will be looked on stronger than it does now. But I don't think it will be soon. I do think it already is a cult film. It's already a cult classic.
It already is. Yeah.
I'm not even like it's not on digital yet. It's already kind of a cult film. Which I think will, it being Francis Ford Coppola's name and it being cult film, I think it'll be kind of a film that we look back to and kind of talk about forever, which I think is why it will be ultimately reclaimed, just because it's never going to kind of leave the talking place. But I don't think it will happen soon, like in the next, 10 years or anything. Maybe, 10 years, but not the next 5, I guess.
Sure. So you already alluded to this idea that people were saying it's hard to follow. Narratively, It is pretty simple. If you just like kind of ignore some details, which I think
people get caught up in the
lack of details,
or like logic stuff.
Yeah, but I think that more like the difficult part is there's so many references and you don't always know what the references are.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is Francis Ford Coppola he's an old guy. He's read a lot of shit, and he he's a very well read guy, and he's referencing things, and he's throwing so much in the pot. Obviously, it's 40 years of ideas, and it's like you're just unless you have read all the things that Francis Ford Coppola has read, like you're just not gonna pick up on everything, or like watch all the movies. I mean, a lot of people are going like all the internet is great for it, where it's like people are pointing out all these different references, you can kind of pick up on it. But it gets confusing when people start like quoting things and referencing things that you just aren't aware with, but you might get like filtered by that and get thrown off and get confused, but you kind of have to just ride with it and like figure that out later.
The thing is, it's easy to follow if you don't pay attention to any of that stuff.
Exactly.
It's actually like a very easy movie. It's like you don't really need to understand.
Well, it's one of those
any of what it's referencing.
When it references something, it's kind of like, okay, if you don't understand that reference, it's kind of it goes by.
Just go with the flow.
Keep going. Just keep going, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes
get into the rhythm of the film because the film has this rhythm.
You're not supposed to understand everything. In any movie, not. It's like you're not supposed to pick up on every little thing. So like, if he's referencing something that you haven't read or you're not understanding or not picking up on the reference, like you just keep going, right? You keep going.
But like really specifically, like there's the clip that was posted on Twitter, right, where it's Caesar and Julia, who is the Adam Driver and the Natalie Emmanuel character, kind of having that back and forth, where it's like, so go back to the club, incredible scene, very funny, right? But that is like it is like somebody pointed this out on Twitter that it is a 1-to-1 like conversation out of the play Pygmalion. Like it is like
I mean it's there's obviously not 1-for-1.
No, it's like but it's like so close. Like, it is so similar.
That's what he's referencing in that moment.
Yeah. Like he literally says in Pygmalion, so go back to the club. Like it's so
So it's
right.
And there's so much stuff like that throughout the film. And I listened to this interview with Francis Ford Coppola, which is really interesting. It was a good interview. Where he said he was talking about like the stuff that he's been reading and like what he likes to read, and he said like while he was working on Megalopolis, whenever he read a book, every time he was reading a book, he like ended up accidentally finding a way to incorporate what he was reading back
Yeah.
into the movie. Um,
Well,
and just like
I mean,
extrapolate that over 40 fucking years.
that's the
Like,
thing. It's like I, even as someone working on my own stuff, it's like, yeah, when I'm working on something and that's in my head and I see something and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You write it down and you kind of, it's everything that you're, it's interesting that he was able to do this for that long because he's like obviously working on other projects, right? It's like Megalopolis was always in the back of his mind because it's like that. Yeah, it's the thing that you do when you're working on something. It's like when you read something or you see something and like you see a sign or you see whatever. Anything can kind of come into that creative process, and then it comes into the film, and the film becomes just like kind of your life at that point of time. But it being something that he's been working on for 40 years is really remarkable that he's able to put all of that into this, and that he's able to kind of, it's tough to do something, spend 3 years on a film and do that, let alone 40 years, which is, again, not the norm.
Right. Do we want to set up the story a little bit, I guess, or like outline it at least to
like the
kind of talk
narrative of
about?
the film.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Because we kind of referenced it without saying what the
Yeah.
movie's about.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So
I
it's
figured you
about
wanted. You're like
Doug's
our.
like the
You're like
thing.
our. Doug's kind of like our plot guy. Like,
Yeah, Doug's
uh
the plot guy.
it's about
He's the history man.
a famous architect. Correct me if I get any details wrong. This is from memory, but it's
sure.
about a famous architect, Caesar Catalina,
Yes.
who's
Yes.
portrayed by Adam Driver, and he is kind of tearing down. Okay, he's like tearing down buildings, right? And making space for his proposed idea of Megalopolis,
Mhm.
which is it's basically, without getting in, it doesn't really matter, but it's basically like Central Park, but made out of like a fake material that he invented called Megalon.
Yes.
Um,
The
and
idea
that's
is
like,
the utopia,
yeah, it's a
Yes.
utopia. That's like just like vaguely it's a utopia.
Mhm.
And
But
the
it's less
mayor,
about
many
the
people have referenced the literal utopia meme that it
yeah.
yeah,
looks
Yeah, but
very similar
the
to.
film in itself is less about like what the utopia is that he's trying to get to, rather than like this
and more
journey
about the
to.
friction getting there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And then the mayor, his name is Cicero, Mayor Cicero, who is
Yes.
portrayed by Giancarlo Esposito,
Yeah.
or Esposito. Uh,
That
he's kind of
actually is.
the one of the oppositions. He doesn't like Caesar
Yes.
Catalina, and he thinks that he's like a hack. He thinks that he's like an evil hack, like fraud scientist,
Uh-huh.
architect, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, no, no, like your ideas are bad. We can't
Mhm.
allow this to happen.
Yes.
And he's and there's like the city's kind of like revolting against him a little bit. Like the city like doesn't is like not in a good place and doesn't like the
Mhm.
mayor, right? He
Yes.
has a daughter named
Mhm.
Julia
Yes.
Cicero, who is played by
Natalie Emmanuel.
yes, Natalie Emmanuel. uh and she kind of like falls in love with Adam Driver's character.
It's
um
like little Romeo and Juliet situation where,
yeah.
two different sides, opposing sides. There's a romance that kind of ultimately brings them together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like she is kind of like the key to unlocking the friction, like the
Mhm.
conflict between the Caesar and the Cicero character,
Yeah.
right? To ending up like helping resolve it. And now in the background of that happening, there is
Yep.
there's there's John Voight, who plays like an older oligarch.
Crassus.
Yes. He plays like this wealthy kind of older oligarch
He's a
character.
banker.
Yeah, he's a banker. You're right. He's a banker.
Yeah.
And he's like super wealthy and he's super old. And
Mhm.
his son
Yes.
is played by Shia LaBeouf.
Correct.
I don't remember.
Claudio.
Claudio. Yes. And he is kind of like in the business, but then Claudio is like an opportunist, right? And Claudio, he wants to just like figure out a way to steal his dad's wealth. He wants to
Yeah.
figure out a way to manipulate the public into gaining political power, and he just wants to like he's very selfish. He's very like he just wants to figure out how to like me, how to gain control. And he also is like kind of a sexual deviant. or like he's like having sex with like his siblings. Um, and
Yeah, that's related. It's referred to.
yeah, and then Aubrey Plaza plays WoW Platinum,
Robbie
who
Plaza is WoW Platinum.
is
Yes.
WoW
Yes.
Platinum. And WoW Platinum is like Caesar's ex.
They have like a
Um,
thing going
yeah, they had like a
on.
thing. They're dating at the beginning of the movie, then they break up, and then WoW Platinum then gets married to Crassus,
Crassus, yes,
who is
John
the
Voight.
John Voight character.
Yeah.
And
So
then but
she
then
wants his money.
yeah, and she is like a gold digger, like trying to like actually steal him, like literally just trying to steal his
Yeah.
wealth from underneath him.
There's a bit with Adam Driver and Aubrey Plaza where she's basically like, I want to be a power couple. I want to be a power couple. We got to be like a power couple. And he's like, what side of that do you want to be a part of? And she immediately kind of they kind of break up, and she's like, okay, I need to find someone as like with high status and lots of money, and so she goes to John Voight as Crisis, who is obviously very rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all kind of like attacking and at the heart of this all is Caesar, right? And so like
Mhm.
Caesar has like the allies and his foes. And Caesar's allies are kind of Julia and Crassus, both like Caesar, whereas everybody else is kind of working against him.
Mhm.
And there's the scene where towards the beginning where Adam Driver is, oh my god, I didn't even talk about his wife. Yes.
His dead wife, yes.
Yeah, his wife is dead. That's a big part of the movie too, which is
And
interesting also from
they think there's like a whole like uh
Conspiracy.
he killed his
yeah.
wife. It's like this big kind of conspiracy, and Cicero has something to do. There's like this court case that
Yes.
has happened in the past, or Cicero has to do with the fact that people think
Well, I
he
wanted
killed his
all this.
wife.
I wanted all this set up so that we could just jump into talking about specific scenes because the movies. Obviously, we're doing this episode not the weekend of the movie's release, and so anybody who wants to see the movie has probably seen the movie already.
Yeah.
We could kind of just openly jump into conversation about whatever scenes we want to talk about. Doug, what was
Mhm.
the scene at the beginning that you were?
Well, yeah, so I was going to talk about there's the scene where Adam Driver is going to get flowers for his dead wife and he's being
Mhm.
followed by both Natalie Emmanuel and Shia LaBeouf's characters,
Yeah.
and it is very silly. Well, Shia LaBeouf's very silly. But it's very like Natalie Emmanuel is following him to figure out like what's going on, and then the Shia LaBeouf character is following Caesar
Natalie
to try
Eman.
and like, or not only
Well,
Emmanuel
he's
following
following,
Caesar.
yeah, yeah. He's like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
going
yeah,
on
yeah.
here? Because he sees them, those two, and he's like, okay,
Yeah,
I gotta kind of get involved in here. Because he hates. That's a big thing. It's like they're cousins, and
right.
Shia
They're
LaBeouf,
related. Yeah,
Claudio hates Caesar, and that's like there's a big rivalry there.
yeah. Um, what scenes do we want to talk about? I don't know. It's like we could. It's just kind of like,
Well, like
Yeah.
overarching thing, we kind of talked about the dead wife and how like that's like a
right.
big part of the film.
Uh,
And something you can't ignore is that Francis Ford Coppola's wife, Eleanor Coppola, passed right before
mhm,
this movie came out.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah,
and it's dedicated to her, of course.
and the film is dedicated to her.
She
And
big part of his career.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's obviously that part of the film. Obviously, when he making this film, that wasn't like his wife had not passed at that point, but it is still something to mention in terms of the text of the film. Like,
it's in the text of the film where and Francis Ford Coppola said himself that the character that he feels most like out of any character in his films is Caesar Catalina.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
who it's there's so much. That's the thing too. There's so much to break down. One of the overarching themes that people kind of mention is this idea of art versus politics, which is interesting because you could talk about the Caesar character as an artist who is being held back by politics, which I kind of think about sometimes as you think about this film as this big expensive film, right?
mhm,
That would not get made unless somebody like Coppola like really stuck his neck out and like had worked this long career
mhm.
in a winery and then had like sell so much of that money to even like get this off the ground, right? It's like there's so much friction and holding back artists from
Yeah.
really fulfilling a lot of their ideas.
Well, it's
Uh,
such a, I mean, it's such an art form that's connected to financials, and you said like the film. is kind of Coppola expressing himself as an artist. This is like his artistic expression, but it's big, it's grand, it's this movie that costs so much, and it's so bold, and it's it's something that isn't for everyone, and we're kind of in a market in an industry that you have kind of to make something for somebody at least. You have to make it for a group of people, enough people that will make it a profitable film, and that's why it had trouble not only because he produced it, he put the money down for himself, but Lionsgate took a while for Lionsgate to come on as that distributor for the American film. And it was like, yeah, at one point it was like, I don't know what's happening with this movie, because you saw it at all those festivals, and people were like, even people were like, I like it, I'm not touching it with a fucking 20-foot pole. That was
Yeah.
like direct quotes from people like, I like it, it's just I can't I can get involved in this, I can't lose money, like I really am glad it exists, and I like that I can see it, but I don't want to be the one to fucking put my neck on the line for this. Which is that whole kind of the politics of the industry there.
I think that could also kind of be an interesting segue into Adam Driver, who has like
Yes.
strongly
The
backed the
goat.
project and Coppola, and
Mhm.
how like he kind of puts his neck on the line for the movie,
Yeah.
and
No.
is not really worried about the
Mhm.
reputation that the movie might
What
carry, or it being a box
there's
office flop, or any of
there's
that
been a
stuff.
lot of conversation online. There's like a the easy Twitter screenshot is like you just post his last couple films and be like, what the fuck is Adam Driver doing? And from us, like our standpoint, it's like, oh, this is an
He's
amazing
cooking.
run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he's doing.
I'm so happy that someone with this talent exists that's willing to do this. Adam Driver has worked with numerous auteurs and helped get their films off the ground. And also, he's not just doing that and like phoning in a performance. He's incredible in these movies, and he's totally bought
Yeah.
in. And he's happy making movies with great filmmakers and making great films. And while they might not be critical successes or box office successes, or just like well liked in a total thing. He's making interesting movies and taking interesting decisions, and he's a big part of the reason why Megalopolis even works, as like he's such a force at that front, and it's such a big movie, and you need someone with control. And one of our best working actors at the front is can't you ask for much better than that? I mean, it's really terrific, and I mean that's one thing that I think um, we can kind of all agree on is the performance in this movie are incredible. Not just Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Like there are so many great performances. I mean, we could talk about each one individually, but I mean, uh, Aubrey Plaza, John Voight. We mentioned Giancarlo. It's Shia, Natalie Emanuel, Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Schwartzman shows up for like 2 minutes. He's fantastic. Everyone is so good. And I mentioned this in a video. But I keep seeing this criticism of people being in different movies, people being good. Hey, it's a good performance, but they're not in the same movie as this guy. And I totally disagree. And I think Doug's shaking his head. I think he agrees as well. But I think is such this energy. There's this big, massive energy, and Coppola is pulling from all these reins, and we're talking about all these things. There's so many references, and at the center of these performances is this kind of big theatrical thing. Coppola like these theater, this live theater, and you even have the kind of idea where the guy comes up to the stage and he's talking to the thing. It's big, it's theater, and I think everyone is so big in this movie. It's so theatrical, and I think they are on the same page, and I think they all really work really well. And it's a funny thing we mentioned those letterbox reviews and people talking about, oh, this is so fun, right? But I hated it, right? It is a fun movie, and I think a lot of that has to do with these really great performances that the text and the dialogue of the film. There's a lot of fun in that, and Coppola is having a lot of fun. There's a boner joke in here with John Voight. Like Coppola there's
So
funny moments,
funny.
but I think it's also like the very theatricalness of it, like to go back to the club, kind of really big internet meme thing.
Yeah.
It's a funny moment, it's a funny line, and a lot of it has to do with not only the writing of the line, but Driver's delivery of that and the direction of
Yeah.
Driver as like a performance.
There so much of it is not modern. Like and the
Right.
writing, I mean, the writing specifically,
Yes.
a lot of it is not modern, and it's like emulating things that aren't modern. And this is something I've noticed. People, I think, just reject it like full
Yeah.
like in cinema just like will like reject anything contemporary that is trying to emulate something that is not also contemporary
Yeah.
because like we're heading towards this place where every fucking movie, and we talk about this all the time, every movie's so fucking ugly. And we're heading towards where every movie has to look like this. It's like it doesn't like every movie just has to look like this. Where it
Look
like
like
it like
what,
this
like the ugly,
yeah, like ugly, like desaturated, like
yeah,
desaturated widescreen,
this like
like
naturalistic lighting and
yeah, with
naturalistic
naturalistic
looking.
lighting. It's like this like that's just like what movies look like. And if something strays too far from that, people are like, "Oh, I don't know." Or even like this
Yeah,
where
no,
we talk
I
about
mean anything with like
performances and the way people speak.
stylistic
Yeah.
from the image standpoint, the editing standpoint, the performance standpoint. It's anything that's like very, it's like a common thing that I keep thinking about, but I always think about when Sam Raimi directed that Marvel movie and he put like a dissolve in the movie, and it's like a
Yeah.
very simple like effect. If people like lost their minds, like what is this goofy ass bullshit that they fucking put in my Marvel movie? And it's like we are so fucked that we.
No,
It's
Yeah.
we're
like
cooked. We're cooked.
it's very silly, and this movie does a lot of that, like a lot
Yeah.
of that, like these effects, and Coppola is pulling from old silent movies. There's and he's pulling
No,
from
like references to Abel Gance, like Abel Gance
yes,
references,
like
like
very direct, and that is why I think I did this to Doug after watching it. But that was when I was like, oh, I'm in, and I was
Yeah.
obviously super excited for this movie for a while now. But when you immediately come, the movie starts and there's Abel Gance references and it all this like theatrical stuff, and he's quoting Shakespeare, and it's like, oh, the energy is ridiculous. I really, but yeah, it is like a thing where people kind of they check out, they do check out, and
Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
lot of
that's what
people are
makes it inaccessible.
exactly. It's
well, but like you
people,
have to. I think that the movie kind of tries to help out the audience a little bit by
Yeah.
announcing itself like this. Like there's rhythms to it, and it's like
It says
yeah,
it's a
like
fable at the beginning. Like it's like
yeah,
that's how the
yeah.
there's like
movie
these like
opens.
huge title cards that are so
Yeah.
over designed and it's wonderful. But then the second scene, I think that Adam Driver's even in the whole film. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's him coming into the big town hall meeting, and he's just like performing
Mhm.
the big is it soliloquy is what it's
Yeah.
called from Hamlet, right, where he's
Yeah.
like to be or not to be. He does the whole thing.
Yes, and that is one that everyone should fucking recognize and be like,
When
okay,
that
he's
Yeah.
quoting,
happens,
yeah.
you should be
But the
like, okay,
problem is
this is
like
the
you could
movie now.
the
I get it.
problem is that like I think, and I like it's not to like be dismissive of the audience, but I think the problem is that like someone like the average person should catch on to that reference, but the
Mhm.
average person doesn't catch on to the reference and then be like, this is the type of movie that I'm watching now. It just like
Mhm.
stops at the reference.
Yeah.
Like that. And I think that's true for like most of these kinds of movies we talk about on the podcast that are like inaccessible and that like audiences kind of hate is like they do a thing that like cements them as different from all the movies that Doug was referencing. And then all those people don't like go along with it. Like they
Yeah.
just they still like go back to the other movies that it is so clearly not.
Well, it's like the thing of like this is the way you make a good movie, and this is not that way. And I'm watching it, I'm having fun. Even people are having fun, but they're like, oh, this is fun, this is funny, but it is not a good movie because of X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah, and it's like we've had that conversation a million times before on the
yeah,
podcast now, but it is so like I mean it even felt this way like when we were talking about the Shrouds. It's like I was watching the Shrouds and I was like for like this is inaccessible to people for the same reason that something like Megalopolis would be inaccessible to people,
mhm.
which is like they don't talk
Because
like
it's just
normal people. Like it's like
different,
you
it's
hear
different, it's unique.
yeah you hear the conversations and immediately you're like people aren't gonna pick up on this, and it's like that's not really what's important in
Mhm.
that movie or this one obviously, but like like that's the kind of thing that it feels like it should be so easy to buy into, and then it like is the complete opposite. And
Yeah,
it's probably also like in talking about the performances what makes them like the like one of the big conversations I guess in terms of performances is like a lot of people, even people who like the movie, pointing to the fact that Natalie Emmanuel like is not good in it.
yeah.
And
She is very good to me. Like, what's that mean? Like, she's very beautiful to me. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
Natalie Emmanuel, I think listen, talented actress, obviously not one of our great, in terms of resume, not one of our great actors of all, like,
sure,
contemporary actors or anything. Like,
Yeah, but
she was
I mean,
like the
she's
fifth
young.
lead in a popular TV show, and now she was in, like, she was like a side character in Fast and the Furious or whatever. But
yeah,
she is like, she fucking came to ball, and she's trying to match Adam Driver's energy in this. She's trying to like she's playing into it, and I think that she's talented, and I think she's really good, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I really like her. I think of that, the the scene where they go back and forth with the club, and her, when she goes entitles me, I really like the
Entitles
way,
me.
I really like her kind of inflections of her voice, and she's doing this accent that is interesting, and it always kind of catches me off guard, especially in the scene where like there's a big it's like the CGI scene where she's in like Willy Wonka's workshop, and there's like fucking leaves and shit, and she's like in this like, it's like it's like what are those movies with Tinkerbell, like the Disney movies where it's like Tinkerbell's fairies and all those. It's like when the Tinkerbell is like, the fairies are like really small, and they're in the grass, and they're in like the leaves are really big, and they're in the fucking.
What?
You ever know the Tinkerbell
The more you
movies?
explain it, the less I know what you're
Like
talking
you're like
about.
specific, like literally like actual Tinkerbell movies. Like,
Yeah. So like they're Tinkerbell, and Tinkerbell has like her friends, and
Right.
and they're like small because it's Tinkerbell. So they have like, the things are really big. Everything is really big because she's Tinkerbell, and that's kind of when she goes into Willy Wonka's workshop. That's what it is kind of like. And it's kind
Oh,
of
you mean the scene where she like walks through it?
and she gets rained on.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and she has a really strong accent
The
in that
Tinkerbell thing
moment.
lost me because you could
Sorry,
hide
sorry.
that, you know.
yeah, I was a little lost there.
But I get what you're saying now.
Sorry.
A little bit of a lost
Yeah.
boy.
Sorry, I was just doing a little references for the
For the real ones,
yeah,
for the real
the
ones.
real,
For
real
for
Tinkerbell heads in that
heads.
one.
Yeah.
But
I
no,
liked her
I
in the
think
movie.
she's good. I think I mean, you talk about that scene where they're on the little beams, and there's like, and he
Right.
can't stop
It's
time. I think
so
it's such a sweet moment. I think it really brings everything together for me as like, this is like this really strong romantic film, and this is that moment, and they kiss, and she drops the thing, and it like stops, which doesn't really make sense because everything else stops, and then she drops something, and it like stops 2 seconds. It's like a delay. I don't really know the logic on that one, but it's beautiful. It's really romantic. It's sweeping. I
and
think she works.
that's at the core of what I like about the movie is the romanticism.
I mean, it has to. It has to work. That has to work, and you have to kind of buy into this love that Adam Driver has, and for everything. And I do think she works in the movie. I do. I wasn't like, when watching it, I was like, oh, people aren't gonna like her performance. I thought she worked as well as everyone else did.
Yeah, I hadn't even really considered that while watching the movie.
There was a really we talked so we went out to dinner with George and, or maybe it was lunch, whatever, with George and Sophie and some of their friends, and we were talking about Megalopolis a little bit. George was really kind of like poking me, being like, why is the movie good, like poking my big belly with the big stick, going like, why is the movie good? And I was kind of talking about some stuff I liked about it, and then Sophie kind of said like, yeah, what did you think of not only like, she said, here's what she said, what did you think of the girl, is how she put it. and I was like, oh, I thought she was really good. And Sophie was like, wow, I like hated her. And George was kind of like agreeing with that. And I'm like, that was my first one. I was like, oh, people aren't gonna like her at all. And then there was a kind of a, not viral is a strong word, there was a tweet that got so like hella traction talking about her performance and saying that her performance is so bad that whenever she says anything, they should put in like it's like the Miss No Guitar Hero sound, like how like everything just falls flat, and I'm like, that's like not my experience at all.
Which is really interesting, because the way that people are talking about it is like, she's like noticeably bad in a way that like doesn't work with, like, it's really detracting from the rest of the movie. Like, it's so alarmingly bad that it doesn't fit in the rest of the movie, or like it feels separate. It's a separate bad. Like they can not like the rest of it. They can not like the rest of it. But then Natalie Emmanuel is a bad that is different from the rest of it, and like kind of stands alone as like the worst thing.
Yeah,
which is obviously not the experience we had.
But she's good. You know who's even fucking better though?
Jon
Voight. Yes, one of the best performances of the year. Legitimately, I stand on by that. One of the best performances of the year, Jon Voight.
Yeah, he's so unbelievable.
Funny. He's so funny.
I saw.
Don't ask him who he's voting for in November.
Well, that's what I'm.
Well, just don't interact with them in real life. Even
I saw this tweet today, and they were like, Dennis Quaid is so good in the substance that we should. You know what? I'm cool with letting a few Republicans in making movies, because if they can do, have him in, he's really a crazy evil performance, but he's good actor. And that's kind of the thing with Jon Voight. It's like, dude, we don't have to talk about politics with him, but he is really great in this movie. Is a really fantastic actor. And that was kind of something Coppola was big on in the press. He was like, I want canceled people, I want non-canceled people, I want people from all walks of life and his real thing is like, I just want really talented people working on the movie. And I don't really care, what your
Yeah.
deal is. I just want talented people that I think are good for the role. And I think you talk about, I mean, plenty of canceled people like Dustin Hoffman or Shia LaBeouf, and you know, that's a separate conversation. But I think they, in terms of their performances, I think all of them are really fantastic. And I think Jon Voight was a surprise because it's like, Jon Voight, okay, how much is he going to
he's
be in
like
the movie?
100 years old. Like
Exactly,
he's
he's
so
really
old.
Yeah.
he's obviously one of the great actors, been around for a while. Well credited, well liked in terms of performances. But yeah, he's really old. When's the last time that Jon Voight's been in a good movie or had a good performance? I'm not too familiar. But yeah, it was like, oh, this guy is fucking terrific in this movie. And I don't know if that's in terms of the direction of him, or he's just not been utilized in the past X amount of years. But yeah, he was a surprise, because it was like, yeah, I mean, Driver's going to come, Giancarlo's going to come to play, and Aubrey Plaza, obviously, like, all these people, you kind of expect them to be great. Shia LaBeouf, but Jon Voight was really surprising, and I liked it that we all kind of came out of it like, yeah, Jon Voight was really great in that movie. Because
Is anybody familiar with the Jon Voight starring 2019 film Roe v. Wade, which currently holds a 2.5 on Letterboxd? It says Dr. Bernard Nathanson and Dr. Mildred Jefferson square off in a national battle in this untold conspiracy that led to the most famous and controversial
he was in
court case in
Reagan
history.
too.
Well, I want to throw that out there.
he-
He was also in Reagan.
He's also in Reagan. In this movie, Roe v. Wade, he plays a character named Justice Berger. I don't know if that's
Justice
a real
Berger.
person.
I'm looking at his recent stuff. There's so many fake movies.
It seems like this is an anti Roe v. Wade movie.
Yeah, I mean,
That's awesome though. Shout out.
my
Shout out
I think
understanding.
the last real movie. I'll shout that out.
Because I saw when I was scrolling through the posters Roe v. Wade, and I was like, this doesn't seem like something Jon Voight would be in. And then I opened it, and I was like, well,
it seems
things
like
are making sense.
unless I skipped something, the last real movie
Tropic
was
Thunder?
in. Well, so I was gonna say that, but in Pride and Glory 2008 is directed by Gavin O'Connor.
Sure,
I
like Gavin O'Connor. Great.
He was
sports
second.
director.
I haven't seen that movie. But it's not like fucking Four Christmases or Baby Geniuses.
Yeah,
and the
I mean,
Treasures of
Gavin
Egypt.
O'Connor is
It's
like
this is like a
very
real
good at
movie.
making sports movies. I don't know if he
So,
can do
yeah,
anything else. Is this a cop
so-
movie? It is.
Yeah, it might be.
It's
So
called Pride and Glory.
So 2008, he did Tropic Thunder and Pride and Glory, and then he also was in National Treasure: Book of Secrets. So it's been since like late 2000s where he's been in a real movie, which makes it even more incredible that he's so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah.
And it kind
he
of
just
goes
has so
to
much room to cook. He just has so much room to just like.
it
like,
kind of goes
go
to
big.
Coppola's thing where he's like, yeah, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like, just come on and be a good actor. Just come on and perform, and don't be a pain in the ass. Just come and do your job, right? And yeah, he does his job. He's really fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's like
he's in whoa 5 movies this year.
So like Adam Driver has like talked about
pushing
so
him out.
much how Adam Driver says this in every interview where he says Megalopolis is the best shooting experience I have ever had personally, right? And then when you push him, he goes like, yes, like the two that really sticks out in my career where I'm like, it was so amazing working on these films, like specifically just working on them on set. He says Megalopolis and Patterson are the two that he says, but he keeps saying Megalopolis. It's like
New Jersey movies, yeah, Patterson, New Jersey.
Yeah, where he says like it was like I felt so amazing, like perfect, perfect experience working on them. And I think like when you watch it, you kind of feel that a little bit where he's like Francis Ford Coppola. This is gonna sound fucking crazy what I'm gonna say, but
don't know, Doug. He's I know what you're about to say.
Safe environment for his actors.
And the recording, dude, please. No, because you can't say stuff like that, dude.
No, but you know what I mean?
No, I don't. I don't know what you mean, and I'm not gonna incriminate myself by saying that I do.
He's making such a safe environment.
You can't it's like we have a reputation. People listen to this podcast.
to like really try things and to creatively just like be a part of the process and like go out there and like experiment and like be themselves. Like
I don't. Why am I the head
But
of PR of the
it's
podcast
also
though? Because now I got to deal with this.
it's also, I mean, he's talked about it being an open environment for collaboration, and he talks about it as being Adam Driver's movie as much as his. And for something that he's been working on for 40 years in such a personal piece, I wouldn't expect him to be that open in terms of like, hey, Shia, you have an idea, or John Boyd, you have an idea, or Adam Driver, you have an idea. Like, let's talk about it. Let's do this. And he's very much like, this is our movie as much as it is his movie, which is fascinating, especially it being this big, again, 40-year passion project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
I will. Okay. Do you want to? Do we want to talk about the politics of Megalopolis?
Sure, we could. I had that in my notes, which is like a mixed bag conversation topic.
Hey, I'll come in. I'll say it. The politics of Megalopolis, they're not bad. Like some people lead you to believe. I think.
Okay, expand on that.
So, the film is very humanist, like kind of like super obviously humanist, where it's like we are like the human.
They like pledge allegiance to the human race or whatever at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's very much, it's like this idea, it's like this no borders, like we have to all look out for each other. That's kind of like what the thing is, where like you could argue like a thesis in Megalopolis, or like a big theme, a big idea that Francis is trying to get across here. It's this idea where it's like there's too much like divide, and there's too much like really like pointless things that people dislike other people for, and we have to like really like work together to make a better future, or else everything's just gonna get fucked. And there's a little bit of like boomer, like what's
it's
the
very
word?
boomer.
Yeah,
Like
it kind
boomer
of sounded.
regret.
I think that
Like-
is Kamala Harris's campaign slogan. What you just said.
No, it's not. It's not. Kamala Harris's campaign
We have to work
slogan.
together for a better future. I'm pretty sure that's on her.
Oh yeah,
It's
we gotta
bar
work
for
together
bar,
with the
word for word.
Republicans.
Yeah.
It's Kamala Harris's. Yeah.
But that is Coppola as well. He said, I want to bring in the Republicans. I want to bring
Yeah.
in the Democrats. I want to make this
He
movie.
wants to see if Donald Trump could direct the movie.
Robert De Niro said he can't. Robert De Niro said
That's what
Donald
they're
Trump
saying.
cannot.
The streets are saying.
They said Donald Trump cannot direct Megalopolis. He's gonna
Yeah.
direct Jack.
There's but like, listen, a big thing that people are pointing out is this great man theory, right? Which is bad. Great man theory, it's this idea where it's like there's like one genius guy that could fucking fix everything if you just let him, right?
Yeah.
And I don't
Famously
think
has never worked in history.
I don't think that Megalopolis, which is bad. I want to throw that out there too. Also, if like listeners don't know, like that's not a good thing. That's not a good ideology. Great man theory is bad. And I don't think that Megalopolis is really doing great man theory. Maybe that's crazy for me to say, Kevin.
I don't know that I could 100% agree with you, but I don't know that. I think it's like it's. I think the movie's like too fascinating, regardless of its politics, for me to be that influenced by what gray area they fall into.
Sure.
Because there's like, it's kind of like an intent. I do think what Doug was hinting at and what I joked about, this idea that it's kind of like if an old kind of like boomer neo-lib who's voting for Kamala Harris's like politics were thrown onto the screen, it would look something of the sort. But I think there's just like it's so messy, kind
Messy.
of Messi, yeah, whose politics are famously, I don't know what Messi's politics are.
He has autism. He plays football.
Okay, that's not really
not anything in the politics.
It doesn't really answer any of my questions.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I just think I don't know. I think the politics are interesting to talk about. I don't know. I think the whole great man thing is it's not there, but like I get what you're saying, that I think it's less important. I don't know that that's like what he was trying to achieve.
Another,
like, I don't know that that's what the movie's trying to say.
Yeah.
Another angle is, and this is more like people that don't kind of watch the movie are saying this, where like, and Francis Ford Coppola is doing this to himself a little bit by citing the Fountainhead as like a specific inspiration for the film, which, and I'm not an expert in the politics and ideology of how do you say her name? Ayn Rand.
And Rand, yeah.
Yes, Ayn
Not
Rand.
not the greatest politics, famously.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, but like I do know that like from what my understanding is like this movie really isn't like does not align with her ideology at all because like she's so like her politics are very like it's like a very self-centered kind of selfish like capitalist where it's like you
Yeah.
have to like do everything in your power to support yourself and look out for yourself. Where this film is so altruistic. It's about a guy who is doing everything in his ability to help other people from his perspective, at least, you know. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, it's about the banker gives away his entire fortune to build fucking Central Park 2.0, basically, or whatever the fuck Megalopolis is, you know.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that like the evil politics of the film have been exaggerated a little bit by people that just want to root against it, maybe, and think that Francis Ford Coppola is a bad guy. But
Yeah, I mean it's kind of an easy route to be like, oh, this a bad guy made a movie with bad politics. It's like that's
Yeah.
it's kind of an easy one to throw out.
Though I don't think I don't know that those are two of the same categories of people. I don't know that the people who are like don't watch this movie because you shouldn't support Francis Ford Coppola are the same people like nitpicking its politics and like
Yeah.
where it falls on the scale of like good to bad politics. I don't know that that's like the same. I think it's more people who are actually interested in seeing the movie that are then picking apart its politics. Um,
right. Yeah.
again, like to me, it doesn't really matter that much. It's like it's what I thought would matter the most going into the movie for
Sure.
me
Hmm.
because I care so much about philosophy and
Hmm.
I kind of like I had an idea of the movie being one thing and then it ends up being something very different. And because it's that thing that's so different, I ultimately like kind of just like was not interested in the politics of the movie at all. I was way more swept up in like one, that it's just really funny, and two, the stuff that both of you hinted at, which is this like central romance that I think really like kind of fuels the ideas of the movie.
Mhm.
Um, so like I don't know that that stuff really matters, and I think if you dig too far into it, you'll probably I don't I think the more time you spend thinking about its politics, you'll probably end up on a thinking that they're bad. But I don't know that that matters again.
Hmm.
So
I
like
don't
it's
know.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
an interesting conversation to have, but I think I think I would need like the full context of like everything that he's throwing at us for me to actually like
Yeah.
really investigate its politics, because there's so much philosophy in the movie that I just understand like outwardly as like stuff that is just like so clear. But then there's so much that he's referencing, and like even like you said, like the Ayn Rand stuff where it's like, I'm not an expert on Ayn Rand. I
None of
know.
us have read The Fountainhead. I would like,
Yeah,
yeah,
Or even seen the movie.
or even seen the
sure.
movie. Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and nor is it something I want to read, just judging on my beliefs and how
I'm
uh,
interested in watching the movie. It seems like,
yeah, sure. I'll watch the
yeah.
movie. I'm not reading a fucking Ayn Rand book. I'm good on
Yeah, on the
that.
subway,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, on the
pull it out.
subway, you have like the fucking like. How long is Atlas Shrugged? It's like 3,000 pages.
No, it's not
Like,
3,000.
it's like longest. It's a
I
big
think it's
ass
like a
book though.
thousand. I think it's like 1,000.
Yeah.
I could look up the
Um.
page count. I see it all the time in Barnes and Noble, and every once in a while I kind of every once in a while I kind of walk past it in the store and just like kind of like hover in its area to see if somebody will pick it up, because I just want to like is that bad?
Yeah, that you're a crazy. What do you mean you
You set
hover
up like
Atlas Shrugged
secret
in the Barnes and
cameras.
Noble? What are you talking about?
It is 1,168 pages. Um, so a little
um,
over 1,000 pages. It's not much longer than a little life.
but yeah, I
No,
and like a
I
lot
get
of
what
the
you mean.
historical stuff too is interesting. Like I would be remiss to not reference the Catalan conspiracy, which a lot of people said the movie was based on the Catalan conspiracy, which I will say from the outside looking in is an easy thing to mistakenly believe because the
Yeah, because of
Catalan
the
conspiracy is
name.
about a guy named Cataline or Catalina and then a
Yeah, and
guy named
Cicero.
Cicero, right?
Yeah.
Which, but our characters in the movie are really poor stand-ins for those historical
Yeah,
figures.
I mean, he's more like Caesar.
Yeah, he's
I
more
mean,
like Caesar.
which his name is. It's like
Yeah.
Coppola does a lot of like, oh, I'll take like the smallest bit from that because I like this. But
Yeah.
it's like that doesn't mean that it's like a one for one,
No.
representation of
I was
anything.
doing a lot of research of the conspiracy before watching the movie because I thought it was going to be like a one for one thing, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then I watched the movie, and like, there's
It's like,
so
yeah.
little of it is in the movie, actually.
Yeah, it happens. It comes from that like just Coppola pulling from a million different things, and it can't be a million different things 100% at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of different things. Parts.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear him talk more about like
Oh yeah, no, I love it.
all
I
those
love a
inspirations
commentary.
and like what level of
The
like
a
involvement they have in
Coppola.
the movie, because it feels like some of the stuff is just like I read this once and I remember like the rough details, and it's like, how do I like what you're saying is like it's very much like it's like I pulled one idea out of
Yeah.
this like
Well, I
greater
like
text.
this part and this part. It's like
Yeah,
he's reading it and he's like, I like this part. This part reminds me of Megalopolis. Let me put this in my notebook. Let me save this for later, and then I'll tie it into Megalopolis rather than
and
like
the
being like, oh,
troublesome
this is
thing
it's
the
yeah.
troublesome thing with philosophy is that that's like a really easy thing to do. Um, so and the problem is like because of what's like inherent to like understanding philosophy and discussing philosophy with other people, it's just like you could just do that, like you could just like I mean that's quite literally like while we're talking about the politics of it, like politicians, that's how they engage with philosophy, is like you can just quote like a text that you read
Yeah.
without any of its like surrounding context and like use that to uphold your values. And more often than not, that is how people use philosophy. Like more often than not, people are not reading Socrates.
Yeah.
They're
Quoting.
quoting
Yeah.
Socrates. And so on and so forth, like
Well,
forever.
there's the
And
scene from this movie, which is one of my
yes.
favorite scenes in the movie, where it's
Yeah.
not only Emmanuel just quoting Marcus Aurelius. It's just like
Yes.
Yeah.
3 separate Marcus Aurelius quotes that she just
It's
like
so
pulls.
good.
Yeah,
It's so
and then
good.
he uses another one of his quotes in retaliation, and that is really like, like not to like, but like at least in my experience, like in my philosophy classes, that was kind of how it went most of the time, which is like kind of an insufferable thing. It's also an insufferable thing to be participating in. I would not advise people to like get into philosophy, but if you do, that is like kind of normally how it works. Is like you could just like you could quote anything from any piece of like anything you read, especially like this period, like kind of like like the Romans and stuff. Like it's like you could just quote that stuff and use it to support anything you're saying. So like to what degree like he actually even understands all of that stuff is kind of like not important.
Yeah.
I think. And that's really my that's really
Yeah.
where like I feel like the politics are like less important to me. I don't know. Were you gonna say something, Doug?
Well, I was just gonna say Marcus Aurelius isn't like the most like complicated, hard to pin down
Sure. I
guy in
don't
the
mean that I
world.
don't mean that he doesn't get what he's saying, but
Yeah.
I mean that like the politics of what he's saying and like the complexities of it are
Mhm.
probably not like do not have like a clear through line, like in terms of like everything that he's incorporating into the movie, um because it would just be hard to do that. I don't know. I get what you mean though. Going back to the great man stuff, I do think the romance in the movie kind of is like really what influences all the values of the movie. Like I think that that's really what the movie
Yeah, he's
is
such a romantic.
about.
I mean, it's love for one person. It's love for multiple people. It's love for everybody.
But for
That's kind
humanity,
of
yeah,
that's what I
it's
think.
love for
It's love. It's very like optimistic, romantic hopefulness that
Yeah,
it ends with, at least
yeah, for sure. Did you guys want to talk about that ending?
with the baby.
Yeah.
well, that
It's
baby died,
it
right?
well,
Well, because like
no,
he like
no, it
they do
can't
time
die
stop
because
and
no, because it's
No.
optimistic. It's optimism and it's hopefulness. So the baby does not die.
Yeah, but if you
Um,
logic brain it, right, everybody's frozen
Fuck
except for the
off.
baby.
No, I love that
Right.
ending because it ends like it's the Phantom Menace, and everyone like celebrates. It's like it ends like a Star Wars movie, and there's this big like it's like Star Wars if it ended in New York, and they end up with the fucking in Times Square, and it's like
Yeah.
really really golden, and everyone's happy, everyone's together, and then there's a baby, and they put the baby on the ground, and it's like Challengers where there's no floor, and the baby like gets a magic carpet magically, and then it ends at this like freeze frame, like it's like a 2000s movie, and then there's like a little like little old school like little circle thing going on the baby, and then the music starts playing, and it's like, oh, that movie rocked. It's like a super like happy like ending, or like you reminiscing on everything that just happened, and everyone's coming together. It's like a I remember we talked to I was looking at like a leak that came out a while ago, and they kind of mentioned like Romeo and Juliet if it ended happy, and
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the everyone comes together, and we all succeeded, and it's the love that connects everyone and brings everyone together. It's this big kind of optimistic, happy thing going on.
Yeah. Um,
What do you guys think about it?
the ending, you mean?
Yeah,
I
specifically
think
that one scene with the baby and the gold and the
it is so silly and feels kind of abrupt. It was it was actually kind of
It is a little
surreal
bit, yeah.
thinking about the ending while walking in Central Park. It was a very interesting experience for me. I don't know. The ending well, if you want to talk about the true ending, which is the Pledge of Allegiance to fucking
oh,
humanity at the end,
yes, yes,
which
of
like
course,
is
of course,
so silly, um,
ridiculous. But that is like
ridiculous.
it kind of works for me, and the rest of the movies like it does have that over the top like kind of theatrical silliness, very earnest, but earnest in like a way that like it's like an old man optimism, and that
Yeah.
that kind of feels like the end of the movie to me. It kind of feels like that again.
Yeah.
I could agree with that. I do agree with Doug as well, though, that it is a little abrupt.
Abrupt.
I felt while watching it, I was like, this I mean, I feel that way for most of the movie that it's silly, but then like when you get to that part and it's like and then it kind of like almost took me by surprise when I was like, oh, it's over. And then it
Hmm.
was like it's
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
it's running at like full speed the whole time, and then it just kind of
Yeah,
goes like,
I never really
ta-da.
noticed not that this stuff like matters that much, but I never really noticed like the I really was just kind of like caught up in the world. I think talking about the world of the movie even is interesting because it is such a like weird blend of real life and fiction where like the
Yeah.
things that it sets up are so like it's like you can't even really like point to something that makes sense either in real life or in a fictional world. Like it's like it like weirdly brings the two together where it's like you're seeing things that are both like you would see, but they're just not real at all. Like I yeah, that kind of really fascinates me. And that it kind of goes with like the rhythm of the movie that you're saying that I think those things kind of combine and then you get like so pulled into it that you don't even really realize like everything that you're watching, which again, I worry that that's like such an us experience because of how many people dislike the movie. That's like that's probably I don't know how many people even listening could relate to that, but at least from my perspective, it's so like it just pulls you in a way that's like not really similar to anything else that I've watched recently.
No, yeah.
Um, because it's I don't know, especially because like the time that we watched this was the day before the festival started. So I think especially like one of the things that I
Yeah.
noticed about the festival that there's so many benefits to participating in the film festival, obviously. One of like the things is that when I'm watching so many movies in an environment like the film festival environment and like kind of like the chaos of everything we're doing surrounding it because we're just
Hmm.
trying to like maximize our time and do so much and everything's like kind of so exhausting is that like you're watching movies, like it's like when you're when I just had like the longest day ever and then like the next day I have to watch 3 movies in a row in one sitting. It's like you get to the third movie and kind of like regardless of how good I think the movie is, I'm in the seat thinking about the fact that I'm watching a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
It
And so
becomes
when you
routine.
compare the Megalopolis experience to everything that followed it during the festival, it was like the one time throughout the entire thing, regardless of like how much I liked the movie. I even saw movies that I liked more than Megalopolis, but
Yeah.
like regardless of that, it was like the one time where I really was like there thinking that I'm just like in a movie. Like just it pulls you in a way that I never felt I was even when I was watching some of the best movies of the year. And I guess I'm curious how much it has that effect on people who don't like the movie, because I think there's like some things about the movie that are kind of universal regardless of where people fall on the scale, in terms
Yeah.
of like what they think about it. You know what I mean? Because like I think a lot of people have kind of like I think a lot of people who dislike the movie have been like, "Oh, I respect this as like the kind of ambitious thing and like how much money he poured into it, and like I think that directors should be able to do this, blah blah blah." And they still feel that way despite the fact that they dislike the movie. So I wonder where they fall on like
Mhm.
the world and
Well,
everything of
that
it
was
all.
I kind of made a video meant kind of starting off with that being like the hook of. I was surprised how many people I get it, and when people talk about like how bad it was and stuff like that. But people like what people talk about is it being boring. And because we're talking about it being this very immersive, and there's so much going on, there's so much to kind of tackle, and it's funny, it's it's all these things. But I understand disliking it, but boring is very opposite. It's just that's the opposite of the reaction that I had, because it's long, right? But it comes back to the kind of tapping out and kind of rejecting the kind of the notions and the flow of it. But that is a kind of very foreign to, I guess, the experience that we all had,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you could say a lot of things about it. But boring is not
Yeah, I
what.
was never bored. I mean, it's like,
Calling it
well, the thing
boring
is
is
it's
so
so
crazy.
it's so
So
I think
crazy.
the only thing that I could like find as like a universal agreement is that like the movie's just funny, like whether you think it's good or not, like it's just funny. And
Well, I don't
but
think
the issue
Sophie
is that
laughed.
yeah, I think the issue is that a lot of people that dislike it just think it's like bad funny, as opposed to just
Yeah,
Or
like,
people are
not
calling
funny.
it Tell Me Wiseau, bro.
yeah,
You know how
right.
disrespectful that is? This He directed The Godfather. You're saying he made a Tell Me
Yeah,
Wiseau
Yeah,
movie.
I mean, they hated The Godfather
They
too.
they
hated The
did. Yeah.
Godfather.
That's what
Um
they say. Um
Yeah,
I-
I,
yeah.
I don't
Go
know.
ahead,
I
Doug.
mean, it's like we talk about it being funny, engaging, and on a performance level, but it's so amazing formally, and there's so much formally happening. We talk about like a million things happening
We
on the
haven't
screen.
really talked about that.
I mean, you have the triptychs and everything that's going on here. He's pulling from as many things and referencing from as many things formally as he is in the script. Like
Right.
it's again 40 years of ideas, but not only on the page, but in the images, and it's again I was as big fans of the digital work. There's great, you talk about that scene earlier. We talked about the where he goes up to the flowers,
Right.
and you have I mentioned this when the trailer came out. It was like, this is a really great digital image, because you have this very bluish green kind of sad city, and then in the middle of the street you have this kind of shop with that is glowing, and it's glowing in a way that isn't possible for natural light to kind of work. And it's a super digital image, and this very it's an image that only exists in modern film,
Yeah.
which I thought was really beautiful. And you have a lot of stuff like that. It's not as maybe as in your maybe I don't know. I was gonna say it's not as Twix is very like harsh in terms of like the night stuff, but I think there are some like sequences with the triptychs, and especially that whole sequence where you have all these like heads flying around, and
Right.
I don't really remember what exactly that sequence is, but there's a lot of different things going on. There's like a strong sequence where it's very digital. Um, Really fascinating form. It would be. I'd like to have it physically,
I would
and kind
also
of
like to have it.
Yeah.
break get them, be able to pause it and look at some images on that level. But just from like Lincoln Square IMAX, seeing it twice, there's some really
So
fantastic,
badass. It was so
Yeah.
badass.
I mean,
beautiful,
we could
beautiful
like
images.
speaking of I mean, there's like so Doug and Owen are sitting next to each other for this whole movie, by the way. We're with a group of friends, and so I'm on the opposite end of our group of friends. So
Yeah.
there's like 4 or 5 seats between me and Doug. I even though I'm looking directly at the screen, I can see Doug at least like 20 times during the movie in the corner of my eye, like sit up in his seat and like point at the screen. Like it's like there's other like people around and he's like freaking out. Like he's like there's like someone behind him just like probably laughing at this movie and Doug is like sitting up in his seat like pointing at the screen
Lock the
like
fuck in.
freaking out.
No,
It's
I mean,
cool. It's
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, we've talked about it to death from the trailer, but the great images. But there's so much in the movie that
wasn't in it.
obviously
Yeah.
was not in it. And I mean, yeah, it comes to the thing of like no other movies like this year, but no other movie looks like this.
No, of course not. Yeah.
You know, it's one of one in that way, and it's a treat. It's like not something you get every year, or you know, it's not every week, not every year, not even. It's like it's kind of a once in a decade thing. Even like it's like this film is not coming out like, tomorrow, and I think that's worth
The
noting.
film
Even
also isn't
if
even
you don't like,
playing in theaters anymore.
yeah, it's playing
Yeah.
in some theaters, but
Yeah,
not.
I mean, it's not playing near me anymore.
Which is ridiculous. But you know, no one was seeing it, so
I'll
it
find
makes
out if
sense.
it's
The
playing,
Wild Robot.
but
It's
Yeah.
playing in Boston still, but not playing at my local.
I wouldn't have to go that far out of my way to see it, but I would have to go a little bit out of my way to see it.
Yeah.
Which
Which is
sucks.
crazy.
Which
Yeah.
sucks for sure. But I mean, yeah, you know, it's been
Yeah,
a weird year. I mean,
it's
we
it's
just talked about
unsurprising.
Joker last week. That big flop there.
Yeah, flop of the year.
Well, it was
is-
funny because I don't remember when like the dates were happening. It was like, oh, Megalopolis can't compete with Joker, right? I mean, a lot of even like studios thought that they were like, we're not going to put our movie next to Joker. That's why this month is kind of a weird month because people were like running away from Joker. Like, I don't want to fucking go up against that movie. Which is it makes it. I mean, this is not Megalopolis, but
Yeah,
it makes it so weird that Joker kind of flopped like the way that it did. Obviously, seeing it now, it makes sense. But
right.
the whole industry was expecting it to be another big hit.
Yeah, and then Terrifier 3 comes out on top. I mean, it's
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Joker's like fucking second week, dude. It's like
Yeah. No,
Yeah, they got
Terrifier 3 is
They
tracking
got out
to
clowned.
gross
Yeah.
twice as much as Joker 2.
Yeah.
Which is
crazy.
interesting. To
Well, the
text
Joker,
that
I think it said
not-
something. I think I saw something that said the Joker second week drop is like 85% or something.
I think
That's
it's
like
90.
that's like an abysmal number.
Yeah,
That's
it's like the biggest
unbelievable.
drop. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just me on Twitter, it's like people who like the first one, or even like casual moviegoers. I've just been seeing on Twitter like people shitting on it and be like, oh, I'm not going to see it. Just like
Yeah.
people are saying it's awful, so why would I go? Right.
Yeah.
That's like
Is-
I mean, that's the Joker base. Like it's a very casual kind of movie. So if people are saying the second one's fucking dog shit, no one's gonna go.
Yeah. Is Megalopolis is both your favorite movies of the year, right? Is that
It's mine.
correct?
I don't know, but okay.
It is
Okay.
mine, yes.
Okay. I just
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
think
check
I
the
mean
assessment.
it's been a really great year in adding the festival movies to the kind of year. It's like, oh, this is amazing. There's so
I
many
haven't
great
even
movies.
done that yet. I
It's
haven't
it's
even
an
compared them
it
yet.
is it's an abundance of riches. The amount of movies that we've seen, it felt like, oh, this is a solid year, and then you go to the festival and it's like you see Megalopolis, and it's like, damn, dude, this is ridiculous. But I think
yeah.
Megalopolis. When we talk about again Megalopolis just standing again and it just being like the year of Megalopolis, it kind of exists separately. But really fantastic year. We'll talk about that again when the year ends officially. But yeah, it sits there for now. I don't think it will move just because again, it's a separate thing. It's almost bigger than just the movie. It's a really massive thing, and it's yeah, I think it's a moment for sure.
Yeah.
It was a
At
moment
least
for
for
me.
us. Yeah.
For
Oh,
sure.
that's another thing too. Is it the kind of experience with that, and I don't.
Right. I mean, it's the first movie the three of us ever watched together in person.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's
watching this
that's a
movie with
big
my
deal.
buds was crazy. That was nuts. That was
Yeah.
nuts.
It's kind of surreal. I mean, that's like a thing that we kind of have talked about on the podcast before, and then we separately off camera, off mic talked about it. Is like we kind of, for the listener, especially if you've been around for a bit, have talked about this as like a thing for so long that it's like almost a little bit surreal that it like is behind us now.
Oh yeah.
Because it's
What episode is this? 80 something,
yeah,
87?
87.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was like
Crazy.
as early as
crazy,
somebody could go back and fact check if you want to watch every single episode. But I don't know when the first time we mentioned watching Megalopolis together, like all three of us in person. But that was a long time ago that we said that on the podcast, and it wasn't really until we were in New York together that I actually believed it was something that we were doing. Like, it was
Yeah.
always, like, a thing that we talked about, and I didn't
Well,
know that was
we kind
actually
of
gonna
lucked
happen.
out. We lucked out a lot with, like, the scheduling and everything because we got I mean, I showed up and then we, like, saw Megalopolis pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
I come into the city, drop my bags off, we go, whatever, and go see Megalopolis, and then the next day the festival starts. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out
Yeah, if it
perfectly.
came out any other weekend, we probably wouldn't have been able to see it together unless we did that instead of the festival, which, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
really
or even,
true,
like,
but
the festival starts a week, whatever, it's like
yeah. Like, if it
the
but you
timing.
know what I'm saying? I'm saying if it came out the weekend before the festival instead of the weekend of the festival, then Doug's not gonna fly out a week early or whatever. Like, it was
Right.
just the
Yeah,
perfect
no,
it was, like, the perfect thing, for us to, because it's even like, we talked earlier about how, like, Nickel Boys is, like, this great opening for the festival. It's like, there's really nothing that could have been better than the fact that this technically came out the night before the festival started.
Mhm,
And
yep,
it almost feels like part of the festival for us, and
very
not for
much.
a lot of other people. Um,
And it was cool because I mean, obviously, you've never been to Lincoln IMAX, so
yeah,
it was very much like the experience of that as well.
yeah,
Not that
Awesome movie
yeah,
theater. Just
great
throw
yeah.
that
movie
out
theater.
there.
Super
We
cool
sat
movie
behind
theater.
Matt
Great
Neglia.
bathrooms in there. Great,
Yeah.
great restrooms in there. 3 stalls, perfectly closed off to where nobody could do any peeking. I hate when people do peeking.
No
I don't
peeking.
I don't I d No, because listen, here's the thing about me. I'm gonna share an intimate detail about my
Okay.
life that listeners of the pod might relate to, or most people will shun me for. Um, I don't like public bathrooms. They're like my least favorite place in the world. I'm like terrified of public bathrooms, and they give me anxiety. When I know that someone is like waiting for me, I can't use the bathroom, dude. Like, it's like, if there's someone in the stall, or like outside the stall, like peeking through the door, waiting to see when I'm done, my ass is not peeing, bro. I'm not like
Yeah. I
I can't
mean,
do that.
I
Um,
yeah, I can see that. I definitely have to like work a little harder,
yeah, but my
but
ass got, bro.
I can get
We
the
got to
job done. I
Megalopolis,
just
dude. I got comfy on the seat, and then not just that, but then I go 2 for 2. We go see Joker there. I
Mm,
also get comfy on the seat. Double poops in the AMC Lincoln Square IMAX, and that's, that
damn,
means something to me. Like,
you're
just,
a consistent scorer.
yeah. Not just there, but also in the Alice Tully bathroom. I was
Okay.
putting up wilt numbers in there, dude. I between screening, there was I mean, there was times where I would go in that bathroom, take a poop before a movie started, and then when it ended, I would go back in and hang out again. And there'd be a lot. The thing with those bathrooms is they're really sealed. Like, it's like there's a line waiting for me. Those guys got to wait for a different stall, dude, because I'm not coming out. I'm getting comfy, dude. I took my jacket off in that stall. They had a little hanger. I got anyway. Um, Me- Megalopolis.
Megalopolis.
Um, I listen. I have all my notes, and I don't think there's a single thing that we didn't cover on them. Are there like scenes you guys want to talk about, or like even a thing that you guys want to talk about, or
No, I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I don't know, but it would be remiss to not
You know what?
mention the time
Okay, that you do that, and
symbolism.
I have another thing after that.
Well, I just want to say, like, there's like all this clock symbolism and stuff, and our friend Max was talking about how like talking about how, like, oh, Caesar like worship the god of time and all this crazy stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It's very crazy, but which I did not pick up on. But yeah, they're literally standing on like a giant fucking clock in the
Yeah,
sky looking over the city.
right?
It's and like he
it's like
has this
super.
ability to stop time, and like that's how he comes up with his ideas and stuff. And it's so the time aspect of it is so interesting, especially when you think about Christopher Coppola being an old
Yeah.
man
Well,
running out
this
of
is like
time. Like,
it's like a fascination that most of these like aging filmmakers have, is with time. I mean, most filmmakers in general, when you really think
Yeah, I
about it,
mean,
like a lot of
it's
our
like
great movies are about time, and like not having enough of it. It's just like it's such a like
yeah,
core idea of movies.
yeah,
Even movies you don't
because
think about, this is still have to do with it. Like, it's not as simple as like it being involved in the plot. It's not as simple as
yeah.
like a Megalopolis or a Tenet thing. It's like a lot of
Mhm.
movies are just like indirectly talking about it,
I mean, it's
especially on
like
like a director level.
cinema is like the art of capturing a moment and keeping that moment forever, right? You can't. It's like this recording is even in that way. It's like we're recording this, and this is existing, and it, it wouldn't if you don't record it. And obviously, so the direct correlation there with the time. I wanted to mention, I was just looking at the page, and there was someone we didn't talk about. There's a whole section with her. It's Grace Vanderwall.
Oh
Right,
Um,
we
shit.
did forget to
best
talk about that.
best
Oh, man, our
best
little
of
Taylor
Sweet
Swift moment.
Bester Sweetwater, who is playing this like pop star. I like earlier in the movie, she's like on like a van, and she's the best of virgin, and there's a whole section where it's like that fucking Coliseum stadium thing, and there's like these events, and it's in the trailer, and it's a very like kind of theatrical thing, and Adam Driver.
It's a pretty chunky
It's
section of
it's
the
a pretty
movie
chunky
too.
section.
They're there in the
Um
Colosseum for, like,
yeah, there's a lot
at
that
least
goes
half an
on.
hour.
It's a kind of big it's a it's a set piece where you have all these different characters that are in the same spot, and they can kind of tie in together, and different things can happen. But you have, obviously Best Sweetwater being this character, and there's like this little weird situation where it happens where Claudio, Shia LaBeouf's character, like
Uses AI. Not real, it's
he
fake news.
he does like a deep fake video, and he puts it on the jumbotron of Grace Vanderwall's character and Adam Driver's character in bed, and the whole thing is like Grace Vanderwall's character is like this 16-year-old, I think, virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's
Who
like
then
this.
turns out to not be 16.
Well, then they
Jeez.
have to go. What's it called? Natalie Emmanuel Julie has to go on this like
To
secret.
find her birth
She
certificate.
has to go on the secret situation where she's find her birth certificate and find out that she was like 23 or something.
Um,
Um,
this part is interesting because this part is actually just straight up from the Catalan conspiracy,
yeah.
where Cicero, where Catalan had sex with the Vestal Virgin in real life, and Cicero tried to use that crime against him to get him killed, which is kind of like what happens in the movie a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
But different, and it
but different.
like
Yeah.
talks a little bit about contemporary issues of AI and deepfakes, and it's funny when it was initially very confusing to me when watching in the theater, because I didn't really fully understand that it was a deepfake at first, because they throw it up, and it's like, because it's a deepfake where it's like it's Adam Driver but it's not, and it's like confusing because like, is that Adam Driver? Like, I'm confused why they're upset, because I'm not registering that Adam Driver yet, because it is different, and so it's like fake Adam Driver, and he's with. It's very silly, and then the way they like the editing is a little confusing to figure out the actual image, but I guess it goes to like it looks like him, but it's not him. It's
Yeah, it's part of it.
it's part of it. Very funny moment, and there's a whole like kind of one of Doug's favorite parts. We'll get to that music video part, but there's a music video before that where she's in this like the moon, and then there's like,
Yeah.
and she spins, and then there's another one of her, and then there's another one of her, and then they there's like the music video when she gets caught, or not get caught,
Yeah.
but like they kind of out her for being 23. It's like the big like flames,
Yeah.
the flaming,
And
like
then
the
So
teen
wait, do we
pregnancy rates skyrocket
yeah,
on the
yeah,
screen.
yeah.
that part's
so
really
awesome.
funny.
It's super. I love all that stuff because it's like a music video-y moment.
It's so hard to like watch that little section of the movie and imagine that people don't like the movie.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you have
Yeah.
like
That's
you have like
so
Ben-Hur chariot
Ben-Hur, yeah.
things. You got these
Yeah.
guys like wrestling, and then it'll do these like cuts to John Voight, and he's like, "Whoa!" and then all these things are happening. Adam Driver is like tripping out, and then there's like a fucking Grace Vanderwall music video. It's so electric. It's so much. That's such a great section. So I definitely wanted to bring that in there before we
Yeah.
wrapped up, because that stuff's great.
Do you have a singer who you think it's supposed to be, or is it just Taylor Swift?
I mean, it's Taylor. I mean, it's Taylor Swift, but it's also just like young pop star.
Sure.
I think. I mean, it's like clear. It's easy to do Taylor
Well,
Swift.
it's also
to be,
like it's like Miley Cyrus.
that is very like
Yeah,
it's very
it is.
Wrecking Ball
Yeah.
in the second part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, young pop star who ages, and then people have problems with their age. Them aging. I think it's like even like
Even
look
Sabrina
at,
Carpenter.
I was about to mention
Yeah.
Sabrina Carpenter. I think even not at the same, but like Olivia Rodrigo or anyone who's young and then like gets a little older. Not in Olivia Rodrigo. I think Olivia Rodrigo is more like people. It's like age policy. It's like policing. It's like it's
Mhm.
weird. Like people being like, "You're this age, and you have to act this way," and it's weird. Pop stars are just looked at in a
Yeah.
weird way, and they're like, you're supposed to. It's the way the thing with Sabrina Carpenter is like people being like, I saw it recently or even today. It was like you're supposed to make music for this demographic. When you like people putting a demographic on someone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even though they're like a
Where it's like
grown
they're the
adult.
artist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I mean they. Yeah, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
a weird relationship
I
that
think
people have with like pop stars, like young
right. And I
women
think
pop
that's
stars.
interesting because I wonder if like that's one of the things that could play to the movie's benefit in terms of like how well it would age if like this being like the kind of universal pop star thing could help like little details like that could help the movie age better because that's something that people could reflect on and be like, oh, he kind of
Yeah,
nailed that. Like it's like that's like
yeah. Well, it's like
applies to so many people and it'll probably apply to whatever
she
pop
has
stars
to.
next in the future.
Her value is that she is 16 and a virgin, and they
Yeah.
hate her
Yeah.
because she's 23. You know, it's
Yeah.
like
It
Yeah.
this
reminds
is
me of that
people.
Entourage subplot. Nobody's watched Entourage.
This fucking guy, bro.
I'm sorry. There's a there's a part in Entourage where there's like a famous singer who's a virgin and Vinny Chase like wants to hook up with her and then they do this whole thing and then and he pretty much thinks that
Is
like
she
he
actually a
can't.
virgin?
Well,
We're gonna find
yes,
out. Okay.
but then he pretty much like convinces himself by the end that like she's not gonna have sex with him, and then like when she's like leaving or whatever for her tour, she like whispers to him, and she's like, I would have fucked you, and they don't. Um,
Yeah, so that's a good place to wrap it up.
I'm sorry for talking about Entourage.
No, no, no. I mean,
No,
someone out
Yeah,
there
it's
enjoyed
okay.
that.
no,
We
there's
We
somebody
forgive you.
there's a 29-year-old man listening to this podcast right now that's really happy that I brought that
yeah,
up.
and that's sometimes that's who we do it for, and
Yeah,
it's not for me. It's not for me or Doug. It's for James in Ohio, and I hope he's happy. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's a sacrifice I have to make, right? I
Yeah.
have to make
Yeah.
that
No.
sacrifice.
yeah.
I can't time stop. I just gotta let it keep going and let you
Time
kind of
stop.
If you could
rattle
time
on.
stop, would you go back to before I mentioned Entourage
What was
and
that?
say something
That's
else?
not how that works.
Sure.
Because I would stop.
It would
You would
just
stop
stop.
you mid. I would just stop
Yeah,
you,
I guess you're right.
and then you'd resume and you'd keep going. So that's adding more time to my day,
Sure.
really.
So I think we're gonna take a short break and then get into
No,
the
yeah. Okay,
news.
so we're gonna wrap up Megalopolis there. We're gonna talk about some news, but I want to remind everybody share some feedback if you liked listening to us talk about Megalopolis. You could like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. You could rate the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you could follow us on Twitter, TikTok, everywhere else, or join the
Rate us
Discord.
5 stars on
to talk to
Spotify.
us. Matt Damon is in talks to star in Christopher Nolan's next film at Universal, set to release in IMAX in July of 2026. We don't really know any details about the movie other than that Matt Damon is starring in it. No
Oh,
plot details yet.
I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
pumped.
it's kept like super under wraps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As
They said
expected, to be
producers
fair.
aren't even allowed to read the script yet. Haven't been allowed to read the script yet.
Yeah, but it's so far out,
I
and it's also
mean,
kind of
the
expected
most.
from the follow-up to Oppenheimer.
I made a video specifically about it, but I'm super excited just for Damon at this point of his career. This is the biggest role you can get, really. Leading a Christopher Nolan film. Massive. It's super exciting.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
even is bigger for an actor than that? Actually, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like the mass appeal, but like a real movie, but pop success. It did wonders for Cillian Murphy. Just uh, Cillian Murphy. I just want to make Kevin make that face. So yeah, it did wonders for Cillian. In him being like this household name at this point.
Yeah.
In terms of just being in that. I know he's been in other Nolan movies, but the lead, right? The lead. So super exciting. I'm excited to hear more about it. Nolan kind of talks about I have this privilege, the ability to make these big movies. I'm going to make these big movies. I'm not going to make kind of a small movie just because I have the opportunity to do this. I'm going to continue to make these like, big event movies. So excited to see what it is. But yeah, super excited. I love Damon. He just did an interview with what was like a talk with Casey Affleck about because they did the Instigators, and I was watching that on my car ride home one of my
The
favorite
movie or
actors.
the interview?
No, just the interview
Okay.
with them. They're just talking about their career. Great guy. Super excited. I mean, he's great in Oppenheimer. But
Yeah.
this is different for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, he has a major role in Oppenheimer, though, to be fair, and
Yeah, no, he's
it's a great
but
performance.
but the lead is
Yeah, it's huge,
I mean, you're number one.
especially for like this project at this point in time, which is like Oppenheimer has
Oh yeah, I
like
mean, Nolan's
elevated
never been
him.
bigger.
Yeah, like it's like this is the guy. So
Yeah,
like I was under the assumption that Cillian Murphy was just going to be leading this project kind of regardless, but I don't, that's like
that's
he'll probably be in the movie, to be fair. I mean, he's been in like so many of his movies now. I'd be surprised if he's not in the cast at all.
Depends on if there's a
But
role for him.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
what if
yeah,
the
we don't
movie
really know what the
what if
movie
it was a
is. It's
one
like if
actor
it's
movie? It was a really big movie where there's one guy in it.
that I would
It'd
expect.
be
Well, that's the thing,
that'd
is
be
like I think the most interesting thing about it is like it's nice that there's a guide to kind of like counteract like the meaningless blockbusters. It's nice that there's like a big, like huge name as a director's name. Like obviously there's like other people making like meaningful blockbusters. Like Doug's a huge fan of Mission Impossible, and like those are
yeah.
big blockbuster franchise that are like good movies, but it's like people aren't watching that for the director. Like it's cool that there's like a
Yeah.
director making movies on
Nolan
like
is
this
kind of
massive of a
the
scale that are like palatable to the average person and also like actually good movies. Like it's like the blend the two. It's like it's good that we have that. And like who knows how big this one could be, I think, is the most interesting conversation, because it's like he's just allowed to
where do
do
you
whatever he
go? Right?
wants. And so I wonder if it's going to be like a similar, I don't think it's going to be like another True Story. I think he's going to try to make something like
I hope not.
entirely different. But I don't think this is going to be like, like I saw people hinting at the fact that like when Oppenheimer was out, he mentioned that he wants to make a horror movie. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
he's
don't think
making,
I
it's
would
gonna
be
be
I don't
this.
think he's making his
surprised.
Matt Damon led $400 million budget horror
It would
movie right now.
be
It would be
amazing.
nuts. I mean,
It
that would
would
be
be
so cool.
so cool. But I said that as well. I was like,
Yeah,
I
it'll be
hope it is, but I don't expect it to be because there would be
But
a
it's like I
thing.
want him to, I don't know, I want him to take another swing, because it's like swing after swing now. So it's like I don't think he's just gonna settle. And even the stuff that like people think is like not good Nolan is still like him swinging. It's just that he's taking much bigger swings now, obviously. So I don't think he's just gonna like settle for anything. And the fact that he could literally just have whatever budget he wants is a very exciting idea. Assuming that
Yeah,
he's
he was
something good,
like,
which he
"Fuck you,
probably
Warner
will.
Brothers."
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
it's like he's like a studio in himself, and he's like, it's very interesting him working because he's kind of very singular in the way that he kind of operate the industry at this point.
yeah. No, I mean it's
Like
hard to talk. It's hard to talk
he's
about
like
stuff we don't know
LeBron.
yet,
Like
but
he can go
yeah,
like he can go anywhere and get a max deal. Like it's just like it's not LeBron now maybe, but like
yeah.
LeBron at his height where it's like
You'd trade your whole
every
team for him.
exactly
You'd
you do
get rid
anything.
of everybody for him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the first piece of news. Next piece of news. Speaking of people being offered lots of money, Netflix reportedly offered $150 million for Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights movie. However, Fennell and Margot Robbie fear the movie won't have the same cultural impact without a theatrical release and are weighing their options.
But I mean they're smart on that one point. I mean
I think
they're
it's like
going
a weird thing that Netflix just like wouldn't do it this one time. Like it's like so crazy that they're so firm in their beliefs that it's like we're willing to offer you $150 million for this movie,
but
but we
no
won't
theatrical
release it
run.
theatrically. Like it's like just do it, dude. It's like it's like that's kind of great. I don't like. It's like
Well, the whole Netflix
is that you would
idea.
get the streams, yeah,
Well, no, but even it's the idea that the movie theaters literally are an antithetical to the
yeah,
business.
yeah,
Where yeah, it's like releasing it theatrically in their mind is that it's like, oh,
yeah.
we're
Given
shooting
up
ourselves
on
in the
that.
foot. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
they've given up on that entirely. But I just I don't know.
yeah.
I I wonder if they'd say yes to like a day and date thing, like a put it on Netflix the same day that it plays in theaters thing. I mean, I wonder if Emerald Fennell and Margot
But
Robbie would
I
say yes
think
to
they
that,
would be opposed
but
to
I
that
think they
too.
probably would be opposed to that as well. Yeah. I don't know. it's interesting because that's a fucking insane amount. $150 million.
Hey, it's not
Like
insane
that's
for
like
Netflix. It's not. They
sure, but
just
like the movies that they usually offer $150 million to are like the Dwayne the Rock Johnson, Ryan Reynolds,
exactly.
this is like you
Well, they
know
give $300 million to the Russo brothers.
sure, that's, like, so different than this, though, like, you can't even say that that's not different.
But it's
A
like,
Wuthering Heights adaptation from Emerald Fennell is not Red Notice, you know? Like, it's like I mean, listen, we'll probably like those 2 movies the same amount, but just, like, zooming out and talking about them as an idea, that's, like, nowhere close to the same thing. I mean, it's like $150 million to just, like,
Just for the rights to distribute
yeah,
it
just like
is a
right,
lot. Yeah.
for like
sure,
somebody like Emerald Fennell who's not making, you know, Red Notice, like I said, like it's like that's not the type of movie that she's making.
Margot Robbie has a lot to do with it, though. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
Margot
for
Robbie
sure.
coming off of Barbie. I think it's
Right.
Barbie, what is that?
No, that's a good point.
uh,
I guess I'm not considering how much that matters. I mean, it is like she is kind of the
the movie
face.
made $1 billion.
Yeah. Um, no, it's a
It's like
big
you have
deal.
the
And Jacob
Saltburn crew, you
Elordi
have the
and Jacob
Barbie
Elordi is
crew.
gonna be in
It's
it.
a
Yeah.
exactly. It's there's so much that kind of it's a strong IP. Margot Robbie.
It should make a lot in theaters.
Oh, it'll be a
I don't see
huge
why
deal.
they
It'll
wouldn't.
be a big deal. That's why they want to be in theaters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Billion-dollar movie? Question mark?
No.
No, Wuthering Heights. They're gonna make $1 billion.
Eh,
What the fuck are you talking
Well,
about?
I'm just comparing it to Barbie, but,
yeah, but I mean, it's not
obviously
Barbie, but
not.
it's. I think it'll be a hit for sure
Yeah.
if it's
Uh,
in the right situation.
Aaron Pierre has landed the role of Jon Stewart in HBO's Lantern series.
Do you guys see have you guys seen the controversy about this?
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
There's
y
a lot of colorism stuff being
yeah,
yes,
talked,
it's
yes.
and
'cause yeah.
I mean, I
I learned
actually
a
I
lot
don't know.
about it. It's
I don't,
interesting.
well, yeah. I mean, if you want, I mean, talk about like I mean, from the inception of the character, it was very
Yeah.
like a strong thing of the. I'm not remembering the artist's name, but it was like I'm going to make this character a dark skinned character because like I don't, I want him to be like that's a very terrible part of like him standing out as like a character. So it is an interesting thing. I think. I mean, obviously, Aaron Pierre, fantastic actor. We talked about him on Rebel Ridge. I think he's great, but I do find it a little odd for the casting, especially when you think of like the creator is like it's very important that he is a dark skinned character. But
I saw it was a video of the artist, I think, when he was
yeah,
older. And he was talking about it, and he said that uh an editor like was coming to him and saying like, are you sure you're using the right colors
yeah.
for Jon Stewart? And he was like, yeah, I think it's the right colors. And he said, really? Because like we usually use light brown for black characters. And he's like, no, I think like I think that Jon Stewart should be a dark brown character. And that's like just using that kind of language. And he's like, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of dark skinned people in real life. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's because
Yeah.
it's a gut reaction sometimes to say that people are overreacting to stuff like this. Maybe that's like the inappropriate reaction, but like learning more about it, it's like it really is. Jon Stewart is really supposed to be a dark skinned character, and it's like a
Yeah.
big part. And he's never been portrayed in live action before.
I mean,
Um,
Zendaya talked a little bit about this kind of thing in Hollywood, and it's really interesting. I recommend anyone who's listening to go listen to her kind of talk about it, because she'll do a better job than I will. But I mean, there is this thing that exists in Hollywood where it's like a light skinned actress is more marketable than a dark skinned actress. It's
Yeah.
just a thing, and it comes with this casting. It's like you're casting a more marketable face, but
Yeah.
it's like it was just rooted in colorism, and that's kind of the big issue. Like no one's saying that Aaron Pierre is a bad actor. No one who's just like is not
Yeah.
liking the casting is saying that, but there is something a little problematic with casting a light skinned actor to play a dark skinned character.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Next piece of news. Kiki Palmer, Demi Moore, Lakeith Stanfield, and Naomi Aki to star in Boots Riley's I Like
Boots.
Boosters for Neon. The
I
film is
like
about a ring of
boosters.
enterprising boosters, aka shoplifters, who take aim at a cutthroat fashion maven.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
The cast fucking rocks. This is
Yeah, that's
like
cool. That's
this is
cool.
like unbelievable casting. Like uh, Demi Moore, kind of like people are like
She's having a
think
moment.
that the substance was going to be like a renaissance thing, and it's happening like so
Like
immediately.
instantly, yeah.
And then
People
obviously
love a
like
renaissance. They do. An
yeah, they
actor
do.
renaissance, people love
But
that.
then like even when we talked about Blink Twice, which none of us like loved,
Naomi Aki,
Naomi
incredible.
Aki was like a
Incredible actress.
standout. And like
Who's
Lakeith
also in
Stanfield, we've publicly said how much we
she's
love, and
also
same with
in
Keke Palmer.
Mickey
Like
17.
yeah, yeah, she is. I mean,
She's got a great one.
yeah, no, that's awesome. Like it's like these are four
Yeah,
people who
no,
I'm
Boots
super excited
Riley
to see.
is an interesting artist, and you're always
Yeah.
gonna be like tapped into
None of
what
us
he's
watched that
working on.
TV show he made, right? I do really want to
No,
watch it, but
no. But I mean,
well, it's a
like
limited
Keith
series.
Stanfield, obviously they made the what's the film called with the
Um,
Army Hammer and the horse.
Oh,
sorry to bother you.
yeah, sorry to
Yes,
bother you.
yes, it is. So they made that film together. Obviously, they have a collaboration. I mean, Lee Keith is incredible
Yeah.
talent.
I'm a
singer.
Virgo is the name of the show that I'm referring to that I
Gotcha.
wanted to check
Yeah.
out.
So yeah, I saw this news on Keith Stanfield's Instagram. And yeah, I'm totally in. I'm in.
Yeah, no, I mean the cast rocks, the premise rocks. It sounds like a Boots Riley premise from what I can understand.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be a really fun one. Um, Denis Villeneuve quote wants to make a silent film. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, he's talked about this
yeah, he's talked
before.
about this before, but the reason why it's like a piece of news is because I guess he was at London Film Festival or one of the film festivals that's like currently ongoing and giving a talk where he said he wants to do it. The thing is, I don't know that like that means anything because I don't know that means that he's going to do it. I think
Yeah,
he like the way he talked about it at the film festival, I think is being spun as a piece of news because it sounded like he was more like
he
confident
has
about it
so much on
happening.
his plate
Yeah,
too.
but there's just like no way that that happens anytime soon, if ever.
He could if he wanted to.
Sure, but he's not going.
I
Yeah,
I,
like
I think he should focus more on
Yorgos made a
the
silent film.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
You can't see it though.
you can't watch it, but he made one.
it
You
exists.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's a big thing with Denis is I don't think his language is strong enough to support that, especially like what he's doing recently. I think it might be interesting. I mean, maybe he makes a silent film, right? And he comes out a better filmmaker because of it. And I'm
Right.
pro it for that, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of non-news, but
Yeah.
so is kind of this last piece of news here that we have. This is, just Oscar talk, I guess. Instead of having only one host, the Oscars are reportedly considering incorporating more stars to take part in the show through appearances, stunts, and musical performances. Amy Poehler, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Dwayne Johnson, Will Ferrell, Cynthia Erivo, and Ariana Grande are reportedly names that they've reached out to, and the plan would not eliminate any of the 23 categories from being on the live telecast. I don't know if that means that we're looking at like a 4.5 hour broadcast or if it means that they're going to like seamlessly fit in all of
Well,
this extra stuff.
yeah.
But this also just like sounds like the Oscars. Am I wrong?
It
It
makes
says appear through
yeah.
multiple stars through appearances, stunts, and musical performances. Isn't that just like what already happens?
Here's what's gonna happen. So instead of having Jimmy Kimmel roll out, they're just gonna do kind of what they normally do, maybe a little more emphasis on it. But instead of having a singular person, it's just going to be by committee. It's
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
be
be guys.
honest. I
But
would.
that's
You
how
know
they
what I
kind of.
would
It
like.
makes sense. I think it makes sense if they're not going to get John Mulaney or some big name or someone really good. I think just doing it by committee and just not having like a one guy go up there. I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, so I think the reason why this is news maybe is the phrasing makes it seem as though it's not just for this Oscars, but just like a
It's
regular
just going to
Oscars
become the
thing is that
yeah.
they just kind of use the multiple celebrity appearances as a way to like guide the show. I think that would be cool if it means it gets rid of the opening monologue. Just like
Yeah.
a whole part of the show that we just don't need. Just like 15 minutes of a comedian coming out and like doing a bit where they just name all the movies that we're just going to see mentioned 400 times throughout the night anyway would kind of rock if we get rid of that and instead we just have somebody do a stunt, just like a just replicate a stunt from a movie as like
Yeah,
the way to
Tom
just like
Cruise should
yeah,
fly
Tom
in.
Cruise just flies in and does like a Mission Impossible stunt to open the show. Everybody goes nuts and like the whole place is electric, and then
Bro,
there's good momentum for the rest of the show, you know?
Tom Cruise hosting the Oscars would be so fucking electric. That would be
Yeah,
insane. That would
that
be
would never
so great.
happen.
Dude,
But
nobody likes movies more than that guy.
well,
Like nobody.
that's the problem with like all these spins on
Nobody
it.
likes promoting movies as much as that guy. He
No, yeah,
loves
yeah,
selling
yeah,
a movie. He
specifically.
loves selling a
Like,
movie.
yeah.
The problem with all this stuff is like it's like there's such obvious answers to like what people want that are just like every single like new
Well, I
spin
think
on
it's
it is
funny
like
Mulaney turned it down. I mean,
yeah, because it's
yeah,
like
he was
why just avoid doing the shit that way? Like it's like just bring out somebody who likes movies, dude. Just bring out a bunch of people who actually like the movies, because nobody fucking like no random you know what I mean? And it's like the random people that do watch it, they'll just be there for the parts that random people watch anyway. You know what I mean? It's like yeah, Ariana Grande is going to sing a song from Wicked at the Oscars. Like, it's like those people are just going to turn the TV on when that happens, you know? So it's like, why not bring people
they're
out
just gonna watch
who
the
like the
clip
movie?
later on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're gonna
like, it's
watch the
like,
clip later.
yeah. So it's like, just bring, you know, like maybe not Tom Cruise, because I don't think he would say yes, but like bring out people who
Well,
like
that's the other
talking
thing.
about
Hosting is
movies.
hard,
Yeah,
right?
it's hard,
Like,
but it's like if you just had people, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It seems like such an obvious solution to like their big problem. The problem is that I don't think they could like actually just like boost the viewers in the way that they want to see. But the issue with what they're doing is that that's not the solution. Like having The Rock come out and do a bit
no,
at the
yeah.
Oscars is not what's going to boost the viewership, because that's what people already think the Oscars are.
If you need to boost the viewership for the Oscars, which I'm dubious on whether or not that matters even, but it's
Yeah.
like you would need Taylor Swift to host the Oscars, bro.
Right.
You
Yeah.
would need something like you would need Messi to be at the fucking Oscars. Like you need something ludicrous.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird that they don't just like buy into what people already accept the Oscars as and just like go with that, because it's like the viewership you're getting is just the viewership you're gonna get, unless you could somehow like market this as like a event that it's not. Because even the like uh what is it? The Globes, I guess. Is it the Golden Globes? Or is it the Emmys? I don't know. One of those like award shows is a big deal just because they get celebrities in-house. Like they just like they fill the seats with like big names. I think it's the Globes. The Globes just like kind of like, because it's like a mix of movies and TV, so they could bring, so like all the like people who watch it for the TV side of it get to see all like the big names in TV, but then it's like about the movies actually, you know what I mean? Like
I think something that the Game Awards do that make it worth watching for people that care about video games
yeah.
outside of the awards, because not like the awards, like they never really matter, even for the Oscars, like nobody really gives a fuck that much. um is that the Game Awards, they announce new games at the Game Awards. Like you tune in and in between awards they announce, like they have like, they're like, oh, here's a new game from a major publisher that is being announced right here, you know.
yeah.
And and there's like, but there's no like reason to watch the
So
Oscars.
you want them to do like the Marvel conference that they do, but just like at the Oscars?
Here's the thing: if I was
If they
somebody,
did the RDJ announcement at the
no,
Oscars, it would break viewership records.
no, right,
It's
but like if I was somebody that like was like, we need to get more people to watch the Oscars, like that's my job. That's like an idea I'm throwing out there, you know?
yeah, no,
Like,
I really don't disagree. I mean, it would make the show miserable for me, but like if
yeah,
that's like really
exactly. Like I
your
would hate
goal.
that, but
Yeah, but I'm even thinking about it now, and it's just like, you know, like some of these other people, like the fucking Globes or whatever, dude, they're gonna nominate that Ryan Murphy show that Travis Kelce's in, and Taylor Swift will be there, dude. She'll be there with Travis Kelce in the cast, like when they lose the award. Like, but they'll get her in a seat, and then people will turn that shit on because Taylor Swift is in the crowd, and they're gonna make a joke about her and cut to her in the crowd. Like it's like the Oscars don't get that. Like you can't, they don't have like a thing like that that they could just do. But like
no, they have Jimmy Kimmel saying like, who even finished the Martin Scorsese movie,
yeah,
like on
exactly.
stage. Um,
I don't know. It's
who even
just
watches this shit, bro? Like, it's like, all
yeah,
right, I
it's
did. I watched it in multiple times in theaters, brother.
yeah. I The problem is that like I just watch the Oscars no matter what. But it's like, can you just get rid of all the fluff?
No
I don't know.
fluff.
Well, like it's like the stuff that they're saying, unless it's good. Like it's like if everything was funny, then I'd be fine with it. You
Yeah,
know
I
what I
mean, if it was
mean?
a good show, I'd watch the show, but if it was a bad show, I don't wanna watch the show, you know?
Yeah. This is like your horse in a barn thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the last piece of news. We can wrap up there. Next week, episode 88, we're gonna talk about Smile 2 and perhaps some other releases. We'll see how many we fit into the episode. And we'll see you later. Bye.